The blade glinted under the harsh cabin lights as it sliced through the air toward Camille Drake's throat. In that frozen second at 35,000 feet, nobody moved. Nobody except Ethan Ward, whose body launched forward on pure instinct, knowing he had mere heartbeats to prevent a murder. What happened next would transform two strangers' lives forever, binding them through blood, courage, and an unexpected connection neither saw coming. Welcome to a story that proves heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they're just exhausted single dads trying to make it home. Drop a comment with your city below and let me know where in the world this story has reached. Now, let's begin where it all started, with a man who just wanted to sleep through his flight. The Chicago O'Hare departure lounge at 11:47 p.m. was a purgatory of fluorescent lights and overpriced coffee. Ethan Ward sat hunched in a plastic chair that had seen better decades, his calloused fingers wrapped around a paper cup that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. His phone screen showed the time, but more importantly, it showed the photo he'd been staring at for the past hour. Lily, his 7-year-old daughter, dressed in her butterfly costume for tomorrow's school recital. "Daddy, you promise you'll be there?" Her voice echoed in his memory from their call 3 hours earlier. "Miss Henderson says I'm the lead butterfly. The most important one." "Wouldn't miss it for the world, baby girl," he'd promised, even as he watched his connecting flight get delayed for the third time. The red-eye to New York was his last shot at keeping that promise. Gate 47B finally crackled to life with the boarding announcement. Ethan shouldered his worn duffel bag, the same one he'd carried through 2 tours in Afghanistan, and joined the shuffling line of exhausted travelers. His boarding pass read 23C, middle seat, economy. Perfect. Just perfect. The woman in front of him was arguing with the gate agent about her upgrade not going through. Behind him, a businessman barked into his phone about quarterly projections. Everyone had somewhere important to be, something crucial waiting for them. But Ethan doubted any of them had a 7-year-old counting on them to watch her spread her paper wings and fly. He'd been in Chicago for a job interview, assistant manager at a chain auto shop. Nothing glamorous, but it paid $4 more an hour than his current gig at Tony's Garage in Queens. $4 that meant Lily could stay in her good school, maybe even take those piano lessons she'd been asking about. The interview had gone well, or at least he thought it had. These days you never really knew. These days, guys like him, 35, no college degree, just military service and a decade of turning wrenches, were a dime a dozen. The jet bridge smelled like every jet bridge he'd ever walked down. Recycled air, industrial carpet, and that particular brand of travel exhaustion that clung to everything. Flight attendants stood at the aircraft door with practiced smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Ethan nodded at them, fellow members of the Working Too Hard for Too Little club, and made his way down the narrow aisle. Row 23 was exactly where he expected it to be, trapped between a heavy-set man already spilling into the middle seat and a college kid with headphones the size of dinner plates. The overhead bin was full, of course. Ethan shoved his duffel under the seat in front of him, his knees immediately protesting the lost legroom. "Excuse me," he muttered to the heavy-set man who grudgingly stood to let him squeeze past. The armrest was already claimed, along with a good 6 inches of Ethan's paid-for space. He'd learned long ago not to fight these battles. "Pick your fights," his staff sergeant used to say. This wasn't one of them. As he settled in for what promised to be an uncomfortable 3 hours, Ethan noticed her for the first time. First class, aisle seat, second row. Even from 20 rows back, she was hard to miss. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, in that polished, magazine cover way that seemed almost artificial under the harsh cabin lights. It was the way she held herself, spine straight, fingers flying across a laptop keyboard with the focused intensity of someone for whom every minute was money. Camille Drake. He recognized her from the business magazines in the airport bookstore. CEO of Drake Industries, the pharmaceutical company that had been all over the news lately. Something about a breakthrough drug, FDA approval, stock prices soaring. The kind of success story that felt like science fiction to guys like him. She was wearing a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and her dark hair was pulled back in a way that looked simple, but probably wasn't. Everything about her screamed money, power, purpose. Everything about her was the opposite of his life. Scrambling for overtime, patching jeans instead of buying new ones, telling Lily that generic cereal tasted just as good as the brand name stuff. The flight attendants went through their safety demonstration, that choreographed dance of seatbelts and oxygen masks that nobody watched anymore. Ethan had seen enough real emergencies to know that the laminated card in the seat pocket wouldn't save you when things went sideways. When real danger came, you either moved or you didn't. You either acted or you froze. There was no middle ground. The engines roared to life, that familiar vibration that meant they were actually going to make it off the ground. Ethan closed his eyes, already calculating. Wheels up at 12:30, land at 3:45, home by 5:00 if the subway cooperated, catch 2 hours of sleep, wake up at 7 o'clock to get Lily ready for school. The recital was at 9 o'clock. He could do this. He had to do this. The plane lurched upward, and Chicago fell away beneath them, a grid of lights growing smaller and smaller until it was just another bright spot in the darkness. Somewhere down there, other single parents were fighting their own battles, making their own impossible calculations. But up here, suspended between earth and sky, Ethan let himself believe that tomorrow would be better, that the job would come through, that Lily would nail her recital, that maybe, just maybe, they were finally catching a break. He must have dozed off, because the next thing he knew, the cabin lights had dimmed to that artificial twilight that passed for night on red-eye flights. The heavy-set man next to him was snoring, a rhythmic rumble that competed with the engine noise. The college kid was still awake, face lit by his phone screen, thumbs moving in the hypnotic pattern of someone deep in a text conversation. Ethan shifted, trying to find a position that didn't make his back scream. His arm brushed against something wet on the armrest, spilled drink probably, though in the dim light it was hard to tell. He wiped his hand on his jeans, adding one more stain to a pair that had seen better days. That's when he saw the man. At first, it was just movement in his peripheral vision, someone getting up to use the bathroom. Nothing unusual. But something in the way the figure moved set off alarm bells in Ethan's head, bells that hadn't rung since his last patrol in Kandahar. Too purposeful, too focused, not the shuffle of someone half asleep, but the deliberate stride of someone with a mission. The man was tall, thin, wearing a dark hoodie pulled up despite the warmth of the cabin. He'd been sitting somewhere behind Ethan, row 30-something, maybe. Now he was moving forward, not toward the bathroom, but toward first class. Toward her. Ethan's mind processed details with the clarity that only comes with training and experience. The man's right hand was in his hoodie pocket, gripping something. His left hand was clenched, trembling slightly. Adrenaline, not fear. His head was down, but his eyes were up, locked on a target. "No," Ethan whispered, already knowing what was about to happen, already knowing he was probably wrong, hoping he was wrong. But his body was already moving because in moments like this, hesitation killed people. The man pulled out the knife just as he passed row 10. It wasn't a pocket knife or a Swiss Army tool that somehow got past security. It was something improvised, maybe ceramic, maybe some kind of composite material, the kind of thing that wouldn't set off metal detectors but could still open a throat. The blade was maybe 4 inches long, white or gray in the dim light, and sharp enough to catch the reading light of a passenger in row 8 who gasped and pointed. "Camille Drake!" the man shouted, his voice cracking with either rage or fear or both. "You killed them! Your drugs killed them all!" Time did that thing it does in combat, simultaneously speeding up and slowing down, every second stretching like taffy while also racing past too fast to think. Ethan was already up, his seatbelt somehow unbuckled though he didn't remember doing it. The heavy-set man next to him grunted in surprise as Ethan essentially climbed over him, using the armrest as a launching point. "Everyone down!" Ethan roared in his command voice, the one that had gotten 18-year-old kids to follow him into firefights. "Get down now!" Some passengers obeyed instinctively. Others froze. A few pulled out their phones because apparently documenting disaster was more important than surviving it. But Ethan wasn't watching them. His entire world had narrowed to the space between the attacker and Camille Drake, who was turning in her seat, her face registering confusion that was about to become terror. The aisle was an obstacle course of legs, bags, and elbows. Ethan bulldozed through them, his shoulder clipping a flight attendant who was reaching for the intercom. Someone's coffee went flying, the hot liquid splashing across 3 rows. A woman screamed. A baby started crying. The chaos was spreading like wildfire, but chaos was good. Chaos meant confusion, and confusion might buy him the seconds he needed. The attacker was fast, faster than Ethan had anticipated. He was already at row 3, the knife raised, his intention clear. Camille had turned fully now, her laptop sliding off her tray table, her hands coming up in an instinctive defensive gesture that wouldn't stop a determined 5-year-old, much less a blade. "Your poison killed my daughter," the man screamed. 37 people dead. You knew. You all knew. Ethan's tackle caught the attacker at row 2, his shoulder driving into the man's ribs with the full force of his momentum. They went down hard, the attacker's head bouncing off an armrest with a sound like a melon dropping. But he held on to the knife because of course he did. They always held on to the weapon. It was the last thing they let go of. They hit the floor in a tangle of limbs, Ethan on top for a precious second before the attacker bucked and rolled. The knife came around in a wild arc, and Ethan felt it catch his left forearm, not deeply, but enough to know he'd been cut. Hot blood immediately soaked through his shirt sleeve. "Let it go," Ethan growled, his right hand clamping down on the attacker's wrist while his left, despite the cut, went for the man's throat. Not to kill, just to control. To make him understand that this was over. But the attacker was beyond understanding. His eyes were wild, unfocused, seeing something that wasn't there. "She has to pay," he gasped against Ethan's grip. "They all have to pay." The knife came free, finally, skittering across the floor and disappearing under a seat. Without the weapon, the fight went out of the man like air from a punctured tire. He went limp, sobbing now, repeating, my daughter," over and over until the words lost meaning. "I need restraints," Ethan barked, his command voice cutting through the chaos. "Zip ties, belts, anything." A flight attendant appeared with the plastic cuffs they kept for situations like this, because apparently situations like this happened often enough to prepare for. Ethan held the attacker down while she secured his wrists, then his ankles for good measure. Only then did he become aware of the pain in his arm, the blood that was now dripping onto the carpet, and the absolute silence that had descended on the cabin. He looked up to find Camille Drake standing in the aisle, her perfect composure shattered, her hands shaking as she stared at him. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something passed between them. Not gratitude, not yet, that would come later. This was something more primal, the recognition between someone who had almost died and someone who had prevented it. "You're bleeding," she said, her voice smaller than he would have expected from someone who commanded boardrooms. "I've had worse," Ethan replied, which was true but probably not what she needed to hear. He struggled to his feet, suddenly aware that everyone in the plane was staring at him. Some had their phones out, recording. Great. By tomorrow, he'd be all over social media. Lily's classmates would probably see it before he even got home. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, professional calm barely masking underlying tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a security incident, but the situation is under control. We'll be making an emergency landing in Detroit. Please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened." Detroit. Of course. So much for making Lily's recital. A different flight attendant appeared with a first aid kit, guiding Ethan to an empty first-class seat, the one next to Camille's, he realized. She started cleaning his wound, which was longer than he'd thought, but not as deep as he'd feared. 10 stitches, maybe 12, another scar to add to the collection. "That was incredibly brave," Camille said, sinking into her seat. She was trying to project calm, but Ethan could see the tremor in her hands, the way she kept touching her throat where the knife would have gone. "Incredibly stupid, but brave." Just reacted," Ethan said, wincing as the flight attendant applied antiseptic. "Training kicks in." "Military?" "Marines. 2 tours in Afghanistan." "And now?" "Now I fix cars in Queens and try to make it to my daughter's school recitals." The words came out more bitter than he'd intended. Camille studied him with eyes that probably missed nothing in corporate negotiations. "What's her name?" "Lily. She's 7. She's playing the lead butterfly tomorrow. Today, I guess. If I can somehow get from Detroit to New York by 9 a.m. "The lead butterfly," Camille repeated, and for the first time since the attack, something like a smile crossed her face. "That's a big deal." "The biggest," Ethan agreed. "She's been practicing for weeks, has all her lines memorized. Even made me help her with her wings, tissue paper, and wire coat hangers. They're not much, but she thinks they're beautiful. The plane banked, beginning its descent into Detroit. Outside the window, the lights of the city spread out like a circuit board. Somewhere down there, police cars and ambulances were already racing toward the airport. Interviews, statements, paperwork. Ethan knew the drill. By the time he got through it all, Lily's recital would be long over. "The man," Camille said quietly, "the one who attacked me. He said something about his daughter?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah. Said your drugs killed her. 37 people," he said. Camille's face went very still. The April trial. There were complications, unexpected reactions in a small percentage of users. We pulled it immediately, but... She trailed off, staring at her hands. 37 people died before we could recall all of it. The lawsuits are still ongoing. His daughter was one of them? Must have been. She was quiet for a moment. I remember every name, every face in the files. Sarah Martinez, age 9. Emma Thompson, age 11. Lily Chen, age 7. She stopped, her eyes widening as she made the connection. Your daughter's age. Different Lily, Ethan said quickly. Thank God. Yeah, Camille whispered. Thank God. The landing gear deployed with a thump that made several passengers gasp. The descent was steeper than normal, the pilot not wasting any time getting them on the ground. Through the window, Ethan could see the flashing lights already waiting on the tarmac. Police, paramedics, probably FBI. This was going to be a long night. I'm going to miss her recital, he said, not really talking to Camille, just stating a fact that was settling in his chest like lead. No, Camille said suddenly, forcefully. No, you're not. She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen, even as the flight attendant reminded her that all electronic devices should be in airplane mode. Martha? Yes, I know what time it is. Listen, I need the jet ready in Detroit. Yes, now. Flight plan to New York, Teterboro. We need to be wheels up as soon as possible. She paused, listening. I don't care about the cost. Just make it happen. She hung up and turned to Ethan. My company keeps a private jet for emergencies. This qualifies. We'll get you to your daughter's recital. I can't, Ethan started. Yes, you can. You will. That man would have killed me. You saved my life. The least I can do is make sure you keep a promise to a 7-year-old butterfly. The plane touched down harder than usual, the pilot not bothering with finesse. As they taxied toward whatever gate had been cleared for them, Ethan could see the circus waiting. Emergency vehicles, law enforcement, media vans already setting up despite the late hour. Or early hour. He'd lost track of time. This is going to be a circus, he said. Yes, Camille agreed, but I have very good lawyers. We'll make it as quick as possible. The seatbelt sign dinged off, but nobody moved. The captain came on again, instructing everyone to remain seated until law enforcement had boarded and removed the individual in custody. Through it all, the attacker hadn't stopped crying, a broken sound that reminded Ethan too much of fathers he'd seen in Afghanistan, holding children who would never wake up. 2 Detroit police officers boarded first, followed by what looked like federal agents. They hauled the attacker to his feet, his legs barely supporting him. As they dragged him past, he looked at Camille with eyes that had gone empty. She was only 9, he said. She just wanted the headaches to stop. Camille's composure finally cracked. A single tear ran down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. I'm sorry, she said, loud enough for him to hear. I'm so sorry. Whether the man heard her or not, Ethan couldn't tell. He was already gone, disappeared into the jet bridge and into whatever legal nightmare awaited him. The cabin remained silent for a long moment afterward, everyone processing what they'd just witnessed. Then the paramedics arrived for Ethan. Sir, we need to look at that arm. It's fine, Ethan protested, but Camille was already guiding him up. Let them look, she said. We need you in one piece for that recital. The next hour was a blur of controlled chaos. Paramedics insisted on taking him to the ambulance for proper treatment. His arm needed 8 stitches, not 12. He'd overestimated. Police took his statement while the medic worked, efficient multitasking that he might have appreciated under different circumstances. Camille never left his side, handling her own statement while simultaneously coordinating on her phone. Mr. Ward's a hero, one cop said to another, not quite quietly enough. Probably saved her life. Just did what anyone would do, Ethan mumbled, uncomfortable with the label. No, the cop replied. They wouldn't. We've got 40 witnesses and exactly one person who acted. That's you, pal. The media had multiplied like rabbits while they were being processed. Cameras, microphones, shouted questions, all of it aimed at Camille, who handled it with the grace of someone used to public scrutiny. She gave a brief statement, praising the crew and passengers, singling out Ethan as someone whose quick actions prevented tragedy. She kept it short, professional, and then her security detail, where had they come from, whisked them both away to a black SUV. The jet's ready, she said as they pulled away from the chaos. 40-minute flight to Teterboro, then 20 minutes into Manhattan. What time is the recital? 9 o'clock, Ethan said, checking his phone. 4:47 a.m. At PS 84 in Queens. We'll make it, Camille said, with the confidence of someone used to bending reality to her will. The private terminal was a different world from the commercial chaos they'd just left. No lines, no security theater, just a sleek Gulfstream waiting on the tarmac with its engines already running. Ethan had seen plenty of military aircraft, but this was something else. Leather seats that probably cost more than his car, wood paneling that belonged in a boardroom, not an airplane. I've never been on a private jet, he admitted as they settled in. I never used to think they were necessary, Camille replied, accepting a glass of water from the flight attendant. A different breed entirely from the exhausted crews on commercial flights. Then I became a target. Funny how attempted murder changes your perspective on security. This wasn't your first attempt? She gave him a look that managed to be both sad and amused. Mr. Ward, Ethan. Ethan. When you make drugs that save lives, but sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, end them, you make enemies. I've had death threats, protests, 3 attempted break-ins at my home. But this, she touched her throat again. This was the closest anyone's gotten. The jet accelerated down the runway, climbing steeply into the pre-dawn darkness. Detroit fell away beneath them, and Ethan felt the surreal displacement of the last 2 hours. He'd started the night hoping to make it home for a school recital. Now he was on a private jet with a pharmaceutical CEO whose life he'd just saved, his arm throbbing with fresh stitches, his shirt stained with blood, and absolutely nothing about this felt real. Tell me about Lily, Camille said suddenly. What? Your daughter. Tell me about her. I'd like to know about the little girl whose recital we're racing to attend. So Ethan talked. He told her about Lily's obsession with butterflies, how she'd memorized every species in the field guide he'd bought her at a used bookstore, how she'd written her own lines for the recital because the ones the teacher gave her weren't butterfly enough, how she practiced her wing movements in their tiny apartment, knocking over lamps and picture frames, but he didn't have the heart to tell her to stop. He told her about raising Lily alone after his ex-wife decided motherhood wasn't for her and disappeared when Lily was 18 months old, about the juggling act of daycare and work schedules, about missing school events because he couldn't afford to lose the hours, about the guilt that ate at him every time he had to tell Lily that Daddy had to work. She sounds remarkable, Camille said when he finally ran out of words. She is. She's everything. Ethan stared out the window at the lightening sky. That's why I had to take the interview in Chicago. The extra money would mean I could be there more. Maybe actually be the father she deserves. You took a knife for a stranger, Camille pointed out. I think you're already the father she deserves. They landed at Teterboro as the sun was beginning to paint the Manhattan skyline gold. Another black SUV was waiting, engine running. Camille's efficiency was something to behold. No wasted motion, no delays, everything orchestrated like a military operation. I need to go home first, Ethan said as they pulled onto the highway. Change clothes, clean up. I can't show up to her recital looking like this. Camille looked at his blood-stained shirt, his exhausted face, the bandage on his arm. We'll stop at my place. It's closer. I have a brother about your size. He keeps clothes there. I can't. Ethan, she interrupted, you saved my life. The least I can do is loan you a clean shirt. Her place turned out to be a penthouse overlooking Central Park, the kind of apartment that Ethan had only seen in movies. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. and a view that made the entire city look like a personal playground. "Bathrooms through there," she said, handing him a bundle of clothes. "These should fit. Marcus is a bit taller, but close enough." The clothes were designer, of course. Jeans that fit better than anything he'd ever owned. A button-down shirt that felt like silk. Even socks that somehow managed to be luxury items. Ethan stared at himself in the bathroom mirror, exhausted, battered, wearing clothes that cost more than his rent, about to attend his daughter's recital after one of the strangest nights of his life. When he emerged, Camille had changed too, trading her blood-speckled business attire for something more casual but still effortlessly elegant. She was pouring coffee from a French press that probably had its own insurance policy. "You clean up well?" she said, offering him a cup. "These clothes cost more than my truck," Ethan replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Keep them," she said. "Marcus has dozens. He won't even notice they're gone." They stood there for a moment, drinking coffee in her palace in the sky, the morning sun turning everything golden. It should have been awkward. The mechanic and the CEO, the single dad and the pharmaceutical heiress, two people from different worlds thrown together by violence and circumstance. But it wasn't awkward. It was something else. "We should go," Ethan said finally. "Traffic's going to be rough." The ride to Queens was a journey between worlds, from Camille's rarefied Manhattan through the bridge and tunnel battlefield of morning commuters, into the working-class neighborhoods that Ethan called home. PS 84 was a brick building that had seen better decades, surrounded by chain-link fence and decorated with children's artwork that tried to make up for what the budget couldn't provide. "This is it," Ethan said as they pulled up. Parents were already streaming in, most looking as harried as he usually did. "You don't have to come in." "Are you kidding?" Camille said. "I want to see the lead butterfly." The auditorium smelled like industrial cleaner and children's excitement. Rows of metal folding chairs faced a stage with a hand-painted backdrop of a garden that looked like it had been created by enthusiastic, if not entirely skilled, second graders. Parents juggled coffee cups and phone cameras. Younger siblings squirmed and complained, and teachers tried to maintain order with the weary determination of combat veterans. "Daddy!" Lily burst from the side door in full butterfly regalia, tissue paper wings that were already slightly crumpled, antennae made from pipe cleaners that listed to one side, and a smile that could have powered the entire city. "You made it! You made it! I knew you'd make it!" She crashed into him with the force of a small hurricane, and Ethan lifted her up, spinning her around while trying not to damage her wings further. Over her shoulder, he saw other parents watching, some recognizing him from what must have been morning news coverage, whispering behind their hands, "I told you I wouldn't miss it, baby girl." "Who's she?" Lily asked, noticing Camille with the directness that only children possess. "This is Ms. Drake. She helped me get here on time." Lily studied Camille with serious eyes. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" "Lily!" Ethan felt his face burn, but Camille just laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face from corporate beautiful to actually beautiful. "No, sweetheart, but I'm hoping I might be his friend. Would that be okay?" Lily considered this. "Do you like butterflies?" "I'm learning to," Camille replied. "Then okay, you can sit with Daddy. I saved him a seat in the front row, but there's room for two. I have to go backstage now. Ms. Henderson says we have 3 minutes to places." She kissed Ethan's cheek, leaving a smear of the glitter that someone had applied liberally to her face, then disappeared back through the side door with her wings bouncing. Ethan and Camille found their seats, front row, center, with "reserved for Lily's dad" written in crayon on a piece of paper taped to the chair. As they settled in, Ethan was acutely aware of how out of place Camille looked in this world of working parents and public school budget constraints. But she sat there like she belonged, like there was nowhere else she'd rather be. The lights dimmed, well, half of them dimmed. The other half flickered and then stayed on. And Ms. Henderson appeared on stage to welcome everyone to the second grade spring spectacular. What followed was 45 minutes of organized chaos that would have made military operations look simple. Kids forgot lines, wings fell off, someone started crying in the middle of the flower dance, and it was absolutely perfect. Lily commanded the stage with the confidence of someone who knew, absolutely knew, that she was meant to be a butterfly. Her lines, the ones she'd written herself, were about transformation, about becoming something beautiful, about learning to fly even when you're scared. Ethan's throat got tight, and he blamed it on the exhaustion, not on the parallel to their own lives, to his little girl growing up too fast, spreading her tissue paper wings in a world that didn't always make room for butterflies. "She's extraordinary," Camille whispered. "Yeah," Ethan managed. "She is." The recital ended with thunderous applause from the audience of parents who understood that perfection wasn't the point. Lily took her bow with the gravity of someone accepting an Oscar, then immediately broke character to wave frantically at Ethan. Afterwards, in the chaos of parents collecting children and congratulations flying back and forth, Lily dragged Ethan and Camille to meet Ms. Henderson. "You must be Mr. Ward," the teacher said, shaking his hand. "Lily talks about you constantly. She was so worried you wouldn't make it." "Wouldn't have missed it," Ethan said, meaning it more than he'd meant anything in a long time. "And you are?" Ms. Henderson turned to Camille. "A friend," Camille said simply. "Someone who wanted to see the lead butterfly." As they were leaving, Lily between them holding both their hands and chattering about every moment of the performance, Camille's phone rang. She answered it, her face immediately shifting to business mode. Yes, I understand. No, I'll handle it personally. Set up the meeting for this afternoon." She hung up and looked at Ethan apologetically. "The media situation from last night, I need to deal with it." "Of course," Ethan said. "Thank you for all of this, getting me here." "Ethan," she said, stopping him. "Can I ask you something? The job in Chicago, did you get it?" "Don't know yet. They said they'd call." She pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. "I have a better offer. Director of Personal Security, Drake Industries. The salary is, well, it's more than $4 an hour extra. Considerably more. You'd be protecting me, traveling sometimes, but based here in New York. Regular hours when we're not traveling. Full benefits. Lily could have those piano lessons." Ethan stared at the card. The number she'd written was more than he made in a year. "I don't know anything about corporate security." "You know how to keep people safe," she said. "You proved that last night. The rest can be learned." "Why?" he asked. "You could hire anyone, ex-Secret Service, professional bodyguards." "Because they would have hesitated," she interrupted. "They would have assessed, calculated, followed protocol. You didn't. You just acted. That's what I need. Someone whose instinct is to protect, not to evaluate." Lily tugged on his hand. "Daddy, are you going to work with the butterfly lady?" "I don't know, baby. It's a big decision." "She came to my recital," Lily said, as if that settled everything. Camille laughed again. "Think about it," she said. "The offer's open." She knelt down to Lily's level. "You were the best butterfly I've ever seen." "There's going to be a summer show, too," Lily informed her seriously. "I might be a firefly." "Well," Camille said, standing, "I'd like to see that if your dad doesn't mind." She left them there on the sidewalk outside PS 84, getting into her black SUV and disappearing into the river of traffic that was New York at midday. Ethan stood there holding Lily's hand, holding the business card, holding the memory of the strangest night and morning of his life. "Daddy," Lily said, looking up at him, "your shirt is really nice. Is it new?" "Borrowed," he said. "Everything's borrowed right now, baby girl." "Are you okay? You look tired." He picked her up, his wounded arm protesting but holding steady. "I'm perfect," he said. "I got to see my butterfly fly." That night, after Lily was asleep, her butterfly wings carefully hung on the back of her door, Ethan sat in their tiny kitchen and stared at Camille's business card. The news was playing on his laptop. Footage from the plane, passengers describing what had happened, Camille at a press conference handling questions with poise while mentioning the heroic actions of Ethan Ward at least 3 times. His phone rang. Chicago area code. "Mr. Ward, this is Tom Morrison from Midwest Auto. I wanted to let you know that while we were impressed with your interview, we've decided to go with another candidate." "I understand," Ethan said, feeling nothing but relief. "Thank you for the opportunity." He hung up and immediately dialed the number on the back of Camille's card. She answered on the second ring. "I was hoping you'd call. Is the offer still open?" "Yes." "Then I accept. When do I start?" Monday, if that works. But Ethan, there's something else. The man from the plane, the one who attacked me. His name is James Chen. His daughter was named Lily, just like yours. She died 3 months ago from complications related to our drug trial. He's been institutionalized for psychiatric evaluation, but his wife, she wants to meet with me, to talk. Would you come with me? As my security, but also as someone who understands what it means to love a daughter that much? Ethan looked at the photo on the refrigerator. Lily in her butterfly wings, laughing at something off camera, alive and healthy and perfect. Yes, he said. I'll come. Thank you, she said softly. For everything. For last night. For today. For saying yes. Camille, he said, using her first name for the first time since she'd introduced herself. Can I ask you something? Of course. In all your corporate security planning, did you ever imagine you'd hire someone because a 7-year-old butterfly vouched for them? Her laugh was answer enough. Monday came faster than expected. Ethan stood outside the Drake Industries building, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that rose into the Manhattan sky like a declaration of ambition. He was wearing his own clothes this time, new ones, bought with an advance Camille had insisted on to maintain the appropriate professional appearance. They weren't as expensive as Marcus's clothes, but they fit well, made him look like someone who belonged in this world of marble lobbies and executive elevators. Mr. Ward? A young woman appeared at his elbow. Ms. Drake is expecting you. This way, please. The executive floor was another universe entirely. Hushed conversations, original artwork, views that made the whole city look conquerable. Camille's office occupied a corner, walls of glass on 2 sides, a desk that was more sculpture than furniture, and her, standing at the window, phone pressed to her ear, orchestrating something complex with the casual authority of someone used to being obeyed. She ended the call when she saw him. You came. Said I would. Your arm? Healing. The stitches come out Thursday. She nodded, then pressed an intercom button. Martha, please send in Marcus. The door opened and a man entered who could only be Camille's brother, same dark hair, same sharp features, but where she was all controlled elegance, he was casual confidence, designer jeans, and a t-shirt that probably cost more than most people's formal wear. So you're the hero from the plane, Marcus said, extending his hand. Cam showed me the footage. Impressive takedown. Just reacted, Ethan said, shaking his hand. Good reactions. I hear you're joining the team. Fair warning, my sister's a workaholic who thinks sleep is for the weak and food is just fuel between meetings. Your main job might be making sure she actually eats lunch. Marcus, Camille warned. What? Someone needs to tell him the truth. Last bodyguard quit because she kept forgetting he was there and leaving him places. Found him once in a conference room in Tokyo. He'd been there for 6 hours. That was one time, Camille protested. Ethan looked between them, seeing a dynamic that was familiar despite the foreign setting. They were siblings, with all the teasing and protection that implied. It made Camille more human, less the untouchable CEO, and more someone who probably got gum in her hair as a kid and blamed her brother. There's a full briefing package, Camille said, handing him a tablet. Threat assessments, travel schedules, protocol documents. It's a lot. But the immediate concern is tomorrow. The meeting with Mrs. Chen. James Chen's wife, Ethan said, and Itamam. Helen Chen, she reached out through her lawyer. She says she needs to understand what happened, needs to talk to someone from the company. I want to meet with her, but my legal team is having collective heart attacks about liability issues. You're going anyway, Ethan observed. Of course I am. Her husband tried to kill me because our drug killed their daughter. The least I can do is look her in the eye and apologize. It's a security nightmare, Marcus said. Meeting with the wife of someone who attacked you. What if it's a setup? What if she's as unstable as her husband? That's why I have Ethan, Camille said simply. The faith in her voice was both flattering and terrifying. Ethan had protected people in combat, but that was different. Clear enemies, defined battlefields. This was a grieving mother in a coffee shop in Brooklyn. The dangers were emotional, legal, possibly physical, but definitely not clear-cut. I'll need to see the location first, Ethan said. Scout it, establish exits, figure out sight lines. Whatever you need, Camille agreed. The next day, they sat in a coffee shop in Park Slope, the kind of place that served ethically sourced beans and had more laptop-wielding writers than actual coffee drinkers. Ethan had arrived an hour early, mapping every entrance and exit, identifying potential threats, minimal, and potential problems, numerous, but mostly legal rather than physical. Helen Chen looked like grief had hollowed her out and left only the shell. She was probably 40, but moved like someone decades older, each step careful and deliberate, as if the ground might give way. She clutched a worn folder against her chest, and her eyes were red-rimmed behind thick glasses. "Mrs. Chen." Camille stood, extending her hand. Helen looked at it for a moment, then shook it briefly. "Ms. Drake, thank you for agreeing to meet." They sat, Ethan positioning himself where he could see both the door and the windows, close enough to intervene but far enough not to intrude. This was Camille's meeting. He was just insurance. "I need to understand," Helen began without preamble. "The drug that killed Lily, my Lily, how did it happen? How did something meant to help her end up—" She couldn't finish. Camille explained, her voice clinical but not cold, walking through the trial, the unexpected interactions in a small percentage of users, the recall that came too late for 37 people. She didn't make excuses, didn't shift blame, just laid out facts like breadcrumbs leading to tragedy. "She just wanted the headaches to stop," Helen whispered. "She was 9. She loved butterflies." Ethan's breath caught. Across the table, Camille's composure cracked slightly. "Tell me about her," Camille said. For the next hour, Helen Chen talked about her daughter, about her collection of butterfly books, her dreams of being an entomologist, her gentle way with smaller children, her frustration with the headaches that had plagued her since she was 6. She pulled photos from the folder, Lily Chen at various ages, a little girl who looked nothing and everything like Ethan's own Lily. "James blamed himself," Helen said eventually. "He pushed for her to be in the trial. When she died, something in him broke. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating, started talking about justice and revenge and making them pay. I tried to get him help, but grief doesn't follow treatment protocols," Camille finished softly. "No, it doesn't." Helen looked at Ethan for the first time. "You're the one who stopped him." "Yes." "Thank you," she said simply. "He would have hated himself even more if he'd succeeded. He's not a violent man. Wasn't. Before." "He's getting help now," Camille said. "The best psychiatric care. I'm covering the costs." Helen's eyes widened. "You don't have to—" "Yes, I do. I can't bring Lily back. I can't undo what our drug did. But I can make sure your husband gets the help he needs and that you're taken care of while he does." They talked more about legal settlements and medical care and the peculiar arithmetic of putting a price on a life. But underneath the practical discussions was something else. 2 women connected by tragedy, one whose ambition had indirectly caused a death, the other whose loss had driven her husband to attempted murder. As they were leaving, Helen stopped Ethan. "Your daughter, Camille mentioned you have a daughter named Lily, too." "I do. She's 7. Treasure her," Helen said. "Treasure every butterfly moment." That night, Ethan found himself back in Camille's office, both of them exhausted from the emotional weight of the day. She was staring out at the city lights, a glass of something expensive untouched on her desk. "I've been thinking about quitting," she said suddenly. "What?" "The company, the drugs, all of it. We save lives, thousands of lives, but the ones we lose— How do you balance that? How do you weigh 37 deaths against 37,000 saved?" "You don't," Ethan said. "You can't. My staff sergeant used to say that mathematics breaks down when you're counting lives. All you can do is make the best decision you can with the information you have and live with the consequences." "Is that what you did in Afghanistan?" "Every day." She turned from the window to look at him. "How do you live with it?" "You focus on the ones you saved, and when that's not enough, you focus on the ones you can still save." She was quiet for a moment. "Like you saved me." That was different. That was clear. Bad guy with knife, innocent person in danger, simple equation. "Nothing about this is simple," she said. "I hired you to protect me, but I think I think I really hired you to remind me that there are still people who act without calculating the cost, who do the right thing because it's the right thing. Careful, Ethan said. Keep talking like that and I'll ask for a raise. She laughed, the sound filling the empty office. Lily, your Lily, is lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Over the following weeks, Ethan settled into his new role. It was nothing like he'd expected. Yes, there was security planning and threat assessment and all the formal aspects of protection, but there was also making sure Camille ate during 12-hour board meetings, keeping her grounded when corporate pressures threatened to consume her, and somehow, unexpectedly, becoming her friend. 3 months into the job, Ethan had developed a routine that would have seemed impossible back when he was working at Tony's garage. Morning drop-off at Lily's school, then straight to Drake Industries where he'd shadow Camille through a maze of meetings, conferences, and corporate warfare disguised as polite conversation. He'd learned to read threats in smiling faces, danger in seemingly innocent invitations, and most importantly, he'd learned to read Camille herself. The slight tension in her shoulders when a negotiation wasn't going well, the way she touched her pearl necklace when she was buying time to think, the particular shade of exhaustion that meant she'd skipped breakfast again. "You're hovering," she said one Thursday afternoon, not looking up from the contract she was reviewing. They were in her office, the September sun painting Manhattan gold through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "You haven't eaten since that half croissant at 7 this morning," Ethan replied, setting a sandwich from her favorite deli on the desk. "That was 9 hours ago. I'm not hungry. Wasn't a question. Eat." She looked up then, amusement flickering in her eyes. "When did you become my mother?" "When you hired me to keep you alive. Starving yourself to death would look bad on my performance review." She picked up the sandwich, taking a deliberate bite while maintaining eye contact. Happy. Ecstatic. The truth was, their dynamic had evolved into something neither had expected. He wasn't just her bodyguard. He was her anchor to the world outside corporate spreadsheets and pharmaceutical trials. And she somehow had become more than just his employer. She'd shown up at 3 more of Lily's school events, sitting in those uncomfortable metal chairs like she belonged there, cheering for a 7-year-old's art project with the same intensity she brought to board presentations. "We have the Washington trip next week," Camille said, returning to her papers but still eating the sandwich. "Congressional hearing on drug pricing. It's going to be hostile." "More hostile than usual?" "Senator Morrison lost his nephew to an opioid overdose. He's been gunning for pharmaceutical companies ever since. We're not responsible for opioids, but nuance isn't his strong suit. He'll grandstand, make accusations, try to paint us all with the same brush." Ethan had learned about these hearings, theatrical productions where politicians performed outrage for cameras, while Camille and other executives served as props. His job was to get her in and out safely, but the real danger wasn't physical. It was the emotional toll of being blamed for everything wrong with American healthcare while trying to develop drugs that saved lives. "How many death threats this week?" he asked casually, a question that would have seemed insane in his old life, but was routine now. 4. "Martha forwarded them to you?" "She did. 3 are just angry rambling, but 1 concerns me. Very specific details about your schedule. I've coordinated with DC Metro Police and hired additional security for the hotel." Camille nodded absently, already mentally moving past potential threats to her life and back to quarterly projections. This was what amazed him most about her, the ability to compartmentalize danger, to accept it as just another cost of doing business. His phone buzzed. School number. "I need to take this," he said, already knowing what it was about. Lily had been complaining about stomach aches for 3 days, the kind that mysteriously appeared during math class and disappeared during art. "Mr. Ward, this is Nurse Patricia at PS 84. Lily's running a fever. She needs to be picked up." "How high?" 101.3. "She's asking for you." Ethan looked at Camille, who was already waving him away. "Go, take the car. I'm not leaving the office today anyway." "You sure?" "Ethan, go get your daughter. That's an order." 20 minutes later, he was holding Lily's hot little hand as they walked to the waiting town car, her butterfly backpack slung over his shoulder. She was genuinely sick this time, not math class sick, and she leaned against him with the boneless trust of a child who knew absolutely that her father would make everything better. "Can we go to your work?" she asked as they settled into the back seat. I want to see Ms. Camille. You're sick, baby. We're going home. Please? She has that really comfortable couch in her office, and she tells good stories. The fact that his 7-year-old knew about the couch in his boss's office said everything about how their lives had changed. Camille had become a fixture, someone Lily drew pictures for, someone who remembered her favorite ice cream flavor and the names of all her stuffed animals. Just for a few minutes, Ethan conceded, knowing he was being manipulated but unable to resist his daughter's fevered eyes. When they arrived at Drake Industries, Camille took one look at Lily and immediately cleared her desk. Couch, she ordered, pulling a cashmere throw from a cabinet. I keep this for when board meetings run late. Lily curled up on the couch, looking tiny under the expensive blanket. Camille sat beside her, feeling her forehead with a practiced touch. My mom was a pediatric nurse, she explained to Ethan's surprised look, before she married my father and entered the pharmaceutical world. Some skills stick with you. Tell me about the butterflies in Costa Rica, Lily requested, her voice small and raspy. So Camille talked, her voice taking on a storytelling cadence that Ethan had never heard in board meetings. She painted pictures of blue morpho butterflies with wings like stained glass, of migrations that turned the sky orange with monarchs, of caterpillars that looked like jewels and emerged as flying flowers. Lily's eyes grew heavy, her breathing evening out, and within minutes she was asleep. You're good with her, Ethan said softly. She's easy to be good with. She's remarkable. Like someone else I know. The words hung between them for a moment, heavier than he'd intended. Camille looked at him, something shifting in her expression, but before she could respond, her desk phone rang. Ms. Drake? Senator Morrison's office is on line 1. He wants to discuss your testimony. The moment shattered. Camille was instantly back in CEO mode, taking the call, deflecting aggressive questions with diplomatic non-answers. Ethan watched her transform from storyteller to corporate warrior and wondered, not for the first time, which version was the real Camille Drake. The Washington trip came too fast. Ethan had done his homework, studied the layout of the Senate building, coordinated with Capitol Police, identified every entrance and exit in the hearing room. He'd even researched the other people testifying, looking for potential security risks among the various pharmaceutical executives who'd been summoned to explain why Americans paid more for drugs than anyone else in the world. You're nervous, Camille observed as their plane descended toward Reagan National. She was reviewing her prepared statement for the dozenth time, making notes in margins already crowded with revisions. Alert, not nervous. There's a difference. You've been checking your phone every 30 seconds. Lily's still running a fever. Mrs. Chen from 4B is watching her, but you're a father first, Camille closed her folder. We can postpone this. I can claim illness, reschedule. No, this is important. And Lily would never forgive me if you missed your testimony because of her. She made me promise to record it so she could watch Ms. Camille fight the mean senators. Camille smiled. She thinks I'm fighting them? She thinks you're a superhero. Your power is making medicine that helps people. And my kryptonite is congressional oversight. The hearing room was everything Ethan had expected. Wood paneling that radiated authority, cameras from every major news outlet, and senators arranged like judges at a tribunal. The pharmaceutical executives sat at a long table facing them, looking like defendants at their own trial. Camille was the only woman among them, something the cameras seemed particularly interested in. Senator Morrison was exactly what his photos suggested. Silver-haired, square-jawed, with the righteous anger of someone who'd found a cause that played well in swing states. He opened with a statement about American families forced to choose between insulin and rent, between cancer treatment and their homes, between staying alive and leaving their children inheritance instead of debt. It was effective theater, and Ethan could see its impact on the room. The other executives shifted uncomfortably, their prepared statements suddenly seeming tone-deaf. But Camille remained still, watching Morrison with the focused attention of someone studying an opponent. When her turn came to testify, she did something unexpected. She set aside her prepared statement. Senator Morrison, she began, her voice carrying despite no microphone. You lost your nephew Tyler to opioid addiction. He was 23, studying to be a teacher. He got hooked after a sports injury, prescribed pills he didn't need for pain that could have been managed otherwise. His death was preventable, and you have every right to be angry. Morrison's face flushed. How dare you? I dare because I've lost people too. Not to addiction, but to the diseases we're trying to cure. I've also lost people to our failures, 37 people to be exact, in a drug trial that went wrong. I know their names, their faces, their families. One of them was a 9-year-old girl named Lily Chen, who loved butterflies. The room had gone silent. Even the cameras seemed to stop clicking. You want to paint us as villains, Camille continued. Some of us probably are. But Drake Industries has developed 12 life-saving drugs in the past 5 years. We've made them available at cost in developing nations. We've eaten billions in research costs for drugs that failed because they weren't safe enough, weren't effective enough, weren't good enough for the people who needed them. So yes, Senator, be angry. But be angry at the right targets. Be angry at the system that makes us choose between profit and people. Be angry at the insurance companies that decide who lives and dies based on actuary tables. Be angry at the politicians who take donations from all of us and then act shocked when we behave exactly as the system incentivizes us to behave. You're deflecting responsibility, Morrison started. I'm taking responsibility. I'm here, aren't I? But if you want to actually solve this problem instead of just scoring political points, then let's talk about real solutions. Let's talk about regulatory reform that speeds up approval for generic drugs. Let's talk about Medicare negotiating prices. Let's talk about treating healthcare like a human right instead of a luxury good. But if all you want is someone to blame for your nephew's death, then I'm sorry, Senator, but I didn't kill Tyler. The system did. And you're as much a part of that system as I am. The room erupted. Other senators jumped in, some attacking Camille, others defending her, the hearing devolving into the kind of political theater that would play well on evening news but accomplish nothing. Through it all, Ethan watched for threats, for the angry face in the gallery that might turn violent, for the protester who might rush the witness table. But the real threat came from an unexpected source. During a break in testimony, one of the other pharmaceutical executives, a man named Richard Blackwood from Titan Pharmaceuticals, approached Camille in the hallway. Ethan immediately stepped closer, recognizing the type. Old money, old power, the kind of man who thought rules were for other people. That was quite a performance, Blackwood said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Very brave. Or very stupid. Richard, Camille acknowledged coolly. You know, there's been talk about your company, about the Xenopril trial. Some people are saying the problems were known before the trial began. That data was suppressed. Ethan saw Camille's spine stiffen. That's a lie. Is it? I happen to know a researcher from your team who says otherwise, Dr. Martin Webb. He's willing to testify that you personally ordered him to bury negative test results. Martin was fired for falsifying data. His word means nothing. Maybe, but scandals have a way of taking on lives of their own, especially when senators are looking for blood. Blackwood stepped closer, and Ethan tensed. Here's what's going to happen. Drake Industries is going to support Titan's new pricing structure. You're going to fall in line with the rest of us, stop this grandstanding about human rights and accessible medicine, or Dr. Webb's story goes public. You're threatening me? Camille's voice was steady, but Ethan could see the fury building behind her controlled expression. I'm offering you wisdom. This industry survives because we stand together. Start acting like you're better than us, and we'll remind you that you're not. Blackwood walked away, leaving Camille standing in the hallway with her fists clenched. Ethan waited until he was gone before speaking. Want me to accidentally break his nose? Yes, Camille said immediately. Then, no. Maybe. God, I hate these people. Who's Dr. Webb? A brilliant researcher with a God complex and a cocaine problem. I fired him 2 years ago when I found out he was manipulating trial data to make his results look better. He's been bitter ever since, spreading rumors, trying to undermine our work. I didn't think he'd stoop to outright lies, but apparently Blackwood got to him. What are you going to do? The right thing. Same as always. She straightened her jacket. Come on. Round 2 is starting. The afternoon session was even more brutal. Morrison had been energized by Camille's confrontation, using it as evidence of pharmaceutical arrogance. Other senators piled on, each trying to outdo the others in their condemnation. Through it all, Camille remained composed, answering questions with precision, refusing to be baited into sound bites that would play poorly out of context. But Ethan could see the cost. Each accusation, each insinuation that she was personally responsible for America's healthcare crisis chipped away at her composure. By the time they finally escaped to their hired car, she was shaking. "Pull over," she said suddenly to the driver. They were barely 3 blocks from the Capitol when she stumbled out onto the sidewalk and vomited into a trash can. Ethan was beside her immediately, holding her hair back, shielding her from curious passers-by. "I'm fine," she gasped between heaves. "Just stress." "You're not fine." "I have to be fine. I have a dinner with investors in 2 hours. They need to know the hearing didn't damage our position." "Cancel it." "I can't. Camille." He turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "You just went 12 rounds with the United States Senate. You stood up to Blackwood. You defended your company and your principles. You've done enough for one day." She looked at him for a long moment, and he saw something crack in her armor. "I'm so tired, Ethan. Tired of fighting, tired of defending myself, tired of being the only one who seems to care about actually helping people instead of just making money." "Then rest. The fight will still be there tomorrow." They went back to the hotel, where Ethan ordered room service and made Camille eat, while they watched the news coverage of the hearing. Most of it was predictable. Sound bites taken out of context, talking heads debating whether Camille was a hero or a villain. But one segment caught their attention. In a surprising turn, the anchor said, several patient advocacy groups have come out in support of Drake Industries CEO Camille Drake following her testimony today. The groups cite Drake Industries' compassionate use programs and their commitment to accessibility in developing nations as evidence that not all pharmaceutical companies are, quote, profit-driven monsters. The screen showed crowds outside the Senate building, some protesting against Big Pharma, but others holding signs supporting Camille. One sign in particular made Ethan smile. "Drake saves lives. Morrison just takes donations." "You did good today," he told her. "It doesn't feel like it. Blackwood's going to follow through on his threat. The Webb situation could destroy everything we've built. Then we deal with it, one threat at a time. That's how you survive." His phone rang. Mrs. Chen from 4B. Lily's fever had broken, and she was demanding to know if Daddy had protected Ms. Camille from the mean senators. "Tell her yes," Camille called out, hearing the question. "Tell her we won." "Did we?" "We didn't lose. Sometimes that's the same thing." They flew back to New York that night, Camille sleeping most of the flight with her head on Ethan's shoulder. It should have been awkward, the professional boundary clearly crossed, but it felt natural, right even. He'd stopped thinking of her as just his employer weeks ago. She was something else, something more, something that scared him if he thought about it too much. When they landed, a crisis was waiting. Martin Webb had gone to the press, just as Blackwood had threatened. The story was everywhere. Respected researcher claims Drake Industries suppressed negative trial data. Whistleblower speaks out about corporate corruption, calls for investigation. "I need to go to the office," Camille said, exhaustion replaced by determination. "We need to get ahead of this." "It's 2 a.m. Scandals don't keep business hours. But Ethan drove home first, needing to check on Lily, needing to remind himself what really mattered. His daughter was sleeping peacefully, her fever gone, one arm wrapped around the stuffed butterfly Camille had given her after the recital. Mrs. Chen assured him everything was fine, refusing the extra money he tried to give her for staying so late. "You're a good father," she said. "And your boss, she seems like good people too. The news is saying terrible things about her." "The news is wrong." "I know. I can see it in how your Lily talks about her. Children know good people from bad." By the time Ethan reached Drake Industries, the executive floor was buzzing with crisis management. Lawyers, publicists, board members, all summoned from their beds to deal with the unfolding disaster. Camille was in the center of it all, orchestrating the response with the same intensity she brought to everything. "We need the trial data published," she was saying. "Everything. Every test. Every result. Every decision. Complete transparency." "That's insane," one of the lawyers protested. "It'll give our competitors everything." It'll also prove Webb is lying. The data speaks for itself. Camille, an older board member, interjected. Perhaps it's time to consider stepping back. Let someone else be the face of the company until this blows over. You mean step down? Temporarily, until we can clear this up. Ethan watched Camille process this, saw the moment she realized how quickly allies became adversaries when scandal touched them. No, she said simply. I built this company. I'm not abandoning it because some coked-up former employee decided to sell lies to the highest bidder. The arguments continued through the night and into the morning. By the time Lily's school day was starting, they had a plan, aggressive but risky. Full disclosure of all trial data, a press conference with patient advocates, and a lawsuit against Webb for defamation. It would either clear Camille's name or destroy her completely. I need to take Lily to school, Ethan said, finding Camille alone in her office as the sun rose over Manhattan. Go, I'll be fine. Will you? She looked at him, and for a moment all her exhaustion showed. I don't know, I've never had to fight something like this before. Medical challenges, I understand. Corporate competition, I can handle. But this is personal. Webb wants to destroy me because I held him accountable. Blackwood wants to destroy me because I won't play his games. Morrison wants to destroy me because he needs someone to blame. How do I fight all of them at once? You don't, Ethan said. You fight them one at a time, and you don't fight alone. I've always fought alone. It's safer that way. No collateral damage. Maybe, but it's also lonelier, and sometimes having someone watching your back means you can focus on the fight in front of you. She smiled then, a real smile despite everything. Is that military wisdom? No, that's life wisdom. Learned it the hard way after my ex left. Tried to do everything alone, raise Lily, work, survive. Nearly broke me. Then I learned to accept help. Mrs. Chen watching Lily when I worked late. Tony giving me advances when money was tight. Little things, but they added up, made the impossible possible. And now? Now I'm watching your back while you save the world, or at least try to. I'm not trying to save the world, just make it a little less broken. Same thing, different scale. The press conference was scheduled for that afternoon. Ethan dropped Lily at school, promising to pick her up on time, promising that Ms. Camille was okay, promising that the bad people on TV were lying. All the promises parents make when the adult world intrudes on childhood innocence. When he returned to Drake Industries, the building was surrounded by media vans and protesters. Some supported Camille, others demanded her arrest. Ethan guided her through the chaos, his body a shield between her and the shouting crowds. Someone threw an egg that splattered against his shoulder. Someone else shouted that Camille was a hero. The duality of public opinion in all its schizophrenic glory. The conference room was packed. Camille stood at the podium, flanked by patient advocates, people whose lives had been saved by Drake Industries drugs, people who knew the truth behind the headlines. One by one, they told their stories. A mother whose child's leukemia was in remission thanks to a Drake drug. A veteran whose PTSD was manageable because of their innovative treatment. An elderly man who could still recognize his grandchildren because their Alzheimer's medication had slowed his decline. Then Camille spoke, laying out the facts with surgical precision. The trial data, now public, that showed every decision had been made with patient safety as the priority. Webb's history of falsification, his termination, his subsequent threats. The timeline that proved his accusations were impossible. He'd been fired 6 months before the Xanapril trial even began. I'm not perfect, she concluded. Drake Industries isn't perfect. We've made mistakes, and people have paid for those mistakes with their lives. I carry that responsibility every day. But we've also saved lives, thousands of them. We'll continue to save lives, continue to push for accessibility, continue to fight for the principle that medicine should heal, not bankrupt. Martin Webb's lies won't stop us. Richard Blackwood's threats won't stop us. Political grandstanding won't stop us. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about me or my company. It's about the people who need what we create. They're the only judges that matter. The room erupted with questions, but Camille had said what she needed to say. Ethan guided her out through a side door away from the chaos, into a quiet hallway where she could finally breathe. How'd I do? She asked. You told the truth, That's all you could do. Think it'll be enough? Before he could answer, his phone rang. Lily's school again. His heart sank. What now? Mr. Ward, this is Principal Martinez. There's been an incident. Some older children were saying things about Ms. Drake, and Lily, well, she punched one of them. She what? She punched a fifth grader who called Ms. Drake a murderer. We need you to come in. Ethan looked at Camille, who'd heard enough to understand. Go, she said. I'll handle things here. Camille, go. Your daughter just defended my honor. The least I can do is handle a few reporters alone. But she wasn't alone. Marcus appeared with a security detail, ready to take over protection duties. As Ethan left, he heard Camille dealing with the media's follow-up questions, her voice strong despite everything. At PS 84, Ethan found Lily sitting in the principal's office, ice pack on her knuckles, defiance radiating from her small frame. The fifth grader, a boy twice her size, was in the nurse's office with a bloody nose. Want to tell me what happened? Ethan asked after Principal Martinez left them alone. He said Ms. Camille kills people. He said she was evil and should go to jail. He said you work for a bad person. So you hit him? You fight bad guys. That's what you did on the plane. That's what you do every day. I was just helping. Ethan knelt down to her level. Baby girl, I appreciate you defending Ms. Camille, but violence isn't... You used violence on the plane. She had him there. How did you explain to a 7-year-old the difference between necessary force and playground justice? That was different. Someone's life was in danger. Bobby Henderson was being mean. That's dangerous too, just different. He pulled her into a hug. This fierce little warrior who'd inherited too much of his protective instinct and not enough of his restraint. No more punching, okay? Use your words. Words don't work with bullies. Sometimes they do, and when they don't, you tell a teacher. The teacher heard what Bobby said and didn't do anything. Another good point. His daughter was too smart for easy answers. They were interrupted by a knock. Camille stood in the doorway, still in her press conference suit, looking completely out of place in the elementary school office. How did you... Ethan started. Marcus told me what happened. I came to apologize. You didn't punch anybody, Lily pointed out. No, but my situation caused this. Your dad works for me, and that's making things difficult for you. I'm sorry. Lily stood up, walked over to Camille, and took her hand. It's not your fault Bobby Henderson is stupid. Lily, Ethan warned. What? He is. He believes everything he sees on TV. That's stupid. Camille knelt down, still holding Lily's hand. Thank you for defending me. That was very brave. But your dad's right. No more punching, okay? Okay. But if Bobby says mean things again, I'm going to tell him exactly how many people your medicines have saved. I looked it up. It's 247,892 as of last month. You looked that up? Ms. Camille's computer in her office. She lets me use it when I'm there. Ethan stared at his daughter, then at Camille, then back at his daughter. When had his 7-year-old become a corporate spy? Principal Martinez returned with forms to sign and stern warnings about violence having consequences. Lily would have detention for 3 days, letters of apology to write, and a mark on her previously spotless record. She accepted it all with dignity that would have made a Marine proud. As they left the school, Camille's phone rang constantly. Board members, reporters, lawyers, all demanding her attention, but she ignored them all, focused on Lily's chatter about unfair school policies and the proper use of force in defense of truth. I should get back, Camille said eventually. The board is meeting in an hour to discuss the situation. Will you come for dinner? Lily asked. Dad's making spaghetti. I don't think... Please? You look sad. Spaghetti helps with sadness. Camille looked at Ethan, who shrugged. She's not wrong. My spaghetti has healing powers. Medical opinion? Camille asked Lily. Absolutely. Dr. Lily prescribes pasta and butterfly stories. That evening, in Ethan's small Queens apartment, something shifted. Maybe it was the domesticity of it all. Camille helping with homework while Ethan cooked, the three of them around a table meant for two, Lily's excited chatter about everything and nothing. Maybe it was the way Camille fit into their space. Designer suit and all, eating spaghetti from mismatched plates and laughing at Lily's jokes. Maybe it was the moment after dinner when Lily fell asleep on the couch between them, trusting and safe, while they watched the news coverage in silence. Something shifted. Maybe it was the domesticity of it all. Camille helping with homework while Ethan cooked, the three of them around a table meant for two, Lily's excited chatter about everything and nothing. Maybe it was the way Camille fit into their space, designer suit and all, eating spaghetti from mismatched plates and laughing at Lily's jokes. Maybe it was the moment after dinner when Lily fell asleep on the couch between them, trusting and safe, while they watched the news coverage in silence. "The board wants me to take a leave of absence," Camille said quietly, "until the web situation is resolved. Will you?" "I don't know. Maybe it would be better. Step back, let the lawyers handle it, come back when it's over." "That's not you." "No," she agreed. "It's not." On screen, a panel of experts debated Camille's future. One called her a hero whistleblower, another a corporate criminal. The truth, as always, was more complicated than either narrative. "I should go," Camille said, but didn't move. "Stay," Ethan said, the word escaping before he could stop it. "Just stay." She looked at him, something unspoken passing between them. Then Lily stirred, mumbling about butterflies, and the moment passed. "I'll carry her to bed," Ethan said. When he returned, Camille was at the window, looking out at the Queen's skyline, less impressive than her Manhattan view, but somehow more real. "When this is over," she said, not turning around, "the web situation, the investigation, all of it. When it's over, what happens to us?" "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean." He did. The growing connection between them, professional boundaries blurring into something else, something that had no place in their current dynamic but existed anyway. "I don't know," he admitted, "but right now you need security, not complications." "What if I want complications?" "Then you're not thinking clearly. Too much stress, too much pressure. When this is over, when you can think straight, we'll talk." She turned to face him. "You're right. Of course you're right. You're always right. It's very annoying. Part of my charm. Ethan, thank you. For everything. For protecting me, for letting me into your life, into Lily's life, for making me remember why I do this job, not for the money or the power, but for the people. The actual people. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Because tomorrow I'm going to walk back into that boardroom and fight for my company, and the only reason I have the strength to do it is because I know you'll be there, watching my back, making sure I eat lunch, keeping me human. She left then, calling her driver, disappearing into the night. Ethan stood at the window long after her car vanished, wondering when exactly his simple job had become so complicated. When protecting her body had expanded to protecting her spirit, when professional had become personal. His phone buzzed. A text from Camille. "Tell Lily her Dr. Lily prescription worked. The spaghetti helped with the sadness." He smiled, typing back, "She'll be pleased. Her medical license arrives next week." Like, 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "When this is over, I want those complications." He stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Me too." The next morning brought new battles. The board meeting was hostile, half the members wanting Camille gone, the other half recognizing that she was Drake Industries' best asset. The investigation into Webb's claims was moving forward, but slowly. The media had moved on to new scandals, but the damage lingered. Through it all, Ethan did his job. He watched for threats, managed security, made sure Camille ate and slept, and occasionally remembered she was human. But something had changed after that night in his apartment. The professional distance was gone, replaced by something warmer, deeper, more dangerous. "You're distracted," Marcus observed one afternoon, finding Ethan in the security office reviewing threat assessments. "Just doing my job." "No, you're doing your job while thinking about my sister. There's a difference." Ethan looked up sharply. "Marcus, relax. I'm not here to give you the protective brother speech. Camille can take care of herself. But I will say this, she's never let anyone in the way she's let you in. Even before, whatever this is between you two, she trusted you. That's rare for her." "Why are you telling me this?" Because the board is going to offer her a deal. Step down as CEO, remain as chief scientific officer, less visibility, less controversy, less risk, and she's going to take it. What? No, she'd never. She would if she thought it was best for the company. If she thought her presence was hurting more than helping. She'll sacrifice herself for the greater good. It's what she does. Ethan found Camille in her office that evening, standing at the window as she often did when wrestling with impossible decisions. The city lights spread beneath her like a circuit board of possibilities and problems, and she hadn't heard him enter. Marcus told me about the board's offer, he said. She didn't turn around. Of course he did. My brother has many qualities, but discretion isn't one of them. You can't seriously be considering it. Why not? The controversy around me is hurting the company. Our stock has dropped 12%. 3 major partnerships are on hold. The employees are anxious, the shareholders are furious, and the board has lost confidence. Stepping back might be the responsible thing to do. Stepping back would be giving up. No, it would be strategic retreat. Preserve the company, let someone else be the lightning rod for a while, come back when things calm down. Ethan crossed the room, standing beside her at the window. That's not who you are. Maybe it's who I need to be. For the greater good. The greater good. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what I learned in Afghanistan about the greater good? It's usually an excuse people use when they're too scared to fight for what's right. She finally looked at him, surprise flickering across her features. You think I'm scared? I think you're tired, exhausted, and when we're exhausted, surrender starts looking like wisdom. It's not surrender. What? Yes, it is. Webb lied. Blackwood threatened you, Morrison grandstanded, and now the board wants you to fall on your sword to make their lives easier, and you're going to let them win? This isn't about winning or losing. Everything's about winning or losing. You taught me that. Every negotiation, every board meeting, every decision. You fight or you fold, and Camille Drake doesn't fold. She was quiet for a moment, processing his words. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. When did you become my motivational speaker? When you hired me to keep you safe. This is part of that, keeping you safe from yourself. That wasn't in the job description. I've expanded my duties. Call it initiative. Her phone rang, the board chair demanding an answer. She looked at it, then at Ethan, then back at the phone. Tell Lily I'll be late for dinner tomorrow, she said, declining the call. I have a board to fight. The battle lasted 3 days. Ethan watched from the sidelines as Camille marshaled her forces. Loyal board members, supportive shareholders, employees who understood that she was fighting for them as much as herself. She presented data showing that the controversy was actually driving innovation, that their compassionate use programs had expanded, that public support was stronger than the vocal opposition suggested. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. Helen Chen, the wife of the man who'd attacked Camille on the plane, published an open letter in the New York Times. In it, she described her meeting with Camille, the genuine remorse she'd witnessed, the financial support Camille had quietly provided for her husband's treatment. She wrote about grief and blame and the danger of scapegoating. She ended with a simple statement. Camille Drake is not perfect, but she's trying to do right in an industry that often doesn't. That should be encouraged, not punished. The letter went viral. Patient advocacy groups rallied. Even Senator Morrison, perhaps feeling the political winds shifting, released a statement praising Camille's commitment to transparency while still maintaining his broader criticisms of the industry. Then came the breakthrough they'd been hoping for. The investigation into Webb's claims found evidence that he'd been paid by Titan Pharmaceuticals, specifically by Richard Blackwood, to manufacture the scandal. Emails, bank transfers, recorded conversations where Webb admitted he was lying but didn't care because the money was too good. We got them, Marcus announced, bursting into Camille's office where she and Ethan were reviewing security protocols for an upcoming conference. Blackwood's been arrested. Webb's looking at perjury charges. The board just voted, unanimously, to maintain your position as CEO. Camille sank into her chair, the exhaustion of weeks of fighting finally showing. It's over? This round, Marcus said. There'll be others, but yeah, this one's over. That night they celebrated at Ethan's apartment. Nothing fancy, just pizza and juice boxes, Lily's choice, and the quiet satisfaction of survival. Lily had made a banner out of construction paper. "Congratulations, Ms. Camille, for beating the bad guys." "Your spelling's improved," Camille noted, examining the banner. "Dad helped," Lily admitted, "but the butterflies were all me." She'd drawn butterflies in every corner, each one unique, each one colorful. "They're perfect," Camille said, and meant it. After Lily went to bed, Ethan and Camille sat on his small balcony, the sounds of Queens filtering up through the night air. The crisis was over, the immediate danger past, which meant they had to face what they'd been avoiding. "So," Camille said, "those complications we talked about." "The timing's still not great," Ethan pointed out. "I'm still your employee. You could quit." "And do what? Go back to Tony's garage? Leave you with some ex-Secret Service robot who won't make you eat lunch?" "Good point. I'd waste away within a week." They sat in comfortable silence, both knowing what was happening, neither quite ready to name it. "Lily asked me something yesterday," Camille said eventually. "She asked if I loved you." Ethan's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "I told her it was complicated." "Good answer." "She said complicated is just another word for scared. She's too smart for 7. Must get it from her father." "Clearly not. Or I'd know what to do here." Camille turned to look at him. "What do you want to do?" "The smart thing would be to maintain professional boundaries. Keep things simple, safe." "And the not smart thing?" He reached over, taking her hand. It was the first time he'd touched her intentionally, not as protection or guidance, but as connection. "The not smart thing would be admitting that somewhere between that night on the plane and now, I fell in love with you, that watching you fight for what you believe in. Seeing you with Lily, knowing you trust me not just with your safety, but with your truth, it changed something, changed me." "Ethan, but you're Camille Drake, CEO, brilliant, could have anyone. And I'm a single dad from Queens who barely makes ends meet. Well, made ends meet. The salary you pay me is still surreal. Point is, we're from different worlds. You saved my life. That's not a reason to oh, no, listen. You saved my life, but that's not why I'm sitting on a balcony in Queens instead of my penthouse. It's not why I've been to more of Lily's school events than my own board meetings lately. It's not why I feel more like myself in your kitchen than I do in my office." She squeezed his hand. "You see me. Not the CEO, not the public figure, not the symbol people project their anger or admiration onto. You see Camille, just Camille. Do you know how rare that is?" "So what do we do?" "I don't know. But Lily's right. Complicated is just another word for scared, and I'm tired of being scared." She leaned over and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. He answered by pulling her closer, and for a moment, all the impossibilities of their situation faded away. "This is going to change everything," he said when they finally separated. "Everything's already changed, we're just catching up." The next few weeks were an exercise in delicate navigation. They kept things professional at work, maintaining boundaries in public while stealing moments in private. Lily, of course, knew immediately. "You look at each other different," she announced at breakfast one Saturday, Camille having stayed the night for the first time. "Like how the butterflies look at flowers." "That doesn't make sense, baby girl," Ethan said, buying time. "Yes, it does. Butterflies need flowers, and flowers need butterflies. They help each other. You and Miss Camille help each other." "Out of the mouths of babes," Camille murmured, stealing a piece of Lily's pancake. "Hey, butterfly theft is a serious crime." The domesticity of it should have felt forced. The CEO in designer pajamas, she kept clothes at the apartment now, eating breakfast in a kitchen that could fit in her office's closet. But it didn't. It felt like puzzle pieces clicking into place, like lives that had been running parallel finally intersecting. Work, however, was more complex. The board had noticed Camille's renewed energy, her sharper focus, but they'd also noticed Ethan's constant presence. Questions were starting to circulate. "You need to be careful," Marcus warned one afternoon. "The board's looking for any excuse to question your judgment. A relationship with your bodyguard." "Is none of their business," Camille finished. "Everything's their business, you know that, especially after the web scandal. They're paranoid about anything that could generate negative press." He was right, of course. The pharmaceutical industry was under constant scrutiny, and Camille was already a lightning rod. Adding a controversial relationship to the mix would give her enemies ammunition. but life has a way of making choices for you. It happened at a charity gala, one of those insufferable events where wealthy people congratulated themselves for solving problems they'd helped create. Camille was making the rounds, schmoozing donors and partners, while Ethan shadowed her at a professional distance. Richard Blackwood was there, out on bail, pending trial, but still invited because money has its privileges. He approached Camille with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. "Camille, lovely as always." "Richard, I'm surprised you're here." "Bail has its advantages. Besides, I wanted to apologize. The web situation got out of hand. Business competition is one thing, but what I did crossed a line." Ethan tensed, ready to intervene, but Camille held up a subtle hand. "Wait. Your apology would mean more if it weren't motivated by your lawyer's advice," she said coolly. Blackwood's smile turned sharp. "Ever the idealist. It's admirable, really. Though I hear you've been finding comfort in interesting places. Your bodyguard, isn't it? How quaint." "Careful, Richard." "Oh, I'm being very careful, but you should be too. The board might overlook a lot, but the CEO sleeping with the help? That's the kind of scandal that ends careers." Ethan stepped forward then, not as security, but as himself. "Mr. Blackwood, I think it's time for you to move along." Blackwood looked him up and down dismissively. The hero himself. "Tell me, Mr. Ward, what's it like? Going from minimum wage to minimum wage plus benefits must be quite the fairy tale." "Richard, enough," Camille said, her voice deadly quiet. "I'm just curious about the power dynamics. She signs your paychecks, after all. Makes one wonder about consent and coercion, and—" Ethan's fist connected with Blackwood's jaw before anyone saw it coming. The pharmaceutical executive went down hard, champagne flying, glasses shattering, every phone in the vicinity suddenly recording. "Ethan!" Camille grabbed his arm, but the damage was done. Security swarmed, not sure whether to arrest Ethan or help him. Blackwood was on the floor, blood streaming from his nose, already calculating the lawsuit potential. The entire gala had gone silent, hundreds of eyes watching the scene unfold. "That was assault!" Blackwood sputtered through the blood. "Everyone saw it. I'll have you arrested. I'll sue you into poverty." "Try it," Ethan said calmly. "Add it to your list of charges. What's one more felony when you're already looking at 20 years? Camille stepped between them, every inch the CEO despite the chaos. "Mr. Blackwood slipped," she announced to the room. "Too much champagne. Mr. Ward was trying to help him up." "Wasn't he?" She looked at the crowd, and something in her expression made them all nod agreement. "That's what I saw," someone said. "Definitely a slip," another added. "Tragic, really. These floors are so slippery." Blackwood struggled to his feet, understanding the dynamics. He was already a pariah facing criminal charges. No one here would support him against Camille Drake. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Yes, it is," Camille replied. "Security, please escort Mr. Blackwood out. He's clearly had too much to drink." As Blackwood was removed, Camille turned to Ethan. "We need to leave. Now." They made their exit through a side door, Camille's driver already pulling up. The ride back was silent until they were safely in her apartment. "That was stupid," she said. "Probably. You could be arrested." "Possibly." "You definitely broke his nose." "Definitely." She looked at him for a long moment, then laughed. "God, that felt good. I've wanted to hit him for years. Happy to help. This is going to be everywhere tomorrow. Security footage, witness accounts, social media. The board will demand your termination." "I know. I won't fire you. You might have to." "No. If they want you gone, they'll have to fire me too." "Camille, no. I'm done letting them dictate my life. Done pretending, done hiding, done being scared of their judgment. You defended me, defended us. The least I can do is the same." Her phone was already ringing. Board members, lawyers, PR flacks, all in various stages of panic. She ignored them all. "What about Lily?" she asked suddenly. "This will affect her, the publicity, the scrutiny. I'll talk to her. She's tougher than she looks. Gets it from her mother's side, clearly not mine." Her mother left. But her genetic contribution to stubbornness remains. They spent the night planning, strategizing, preparing for the storm. By morning, the incident was indeed everywhere. CEO's bodyguard assaults pharmaceutical executive competed with Love Scandal rocks Drake Industries for the most sensational headline. But something unexpected happened. The security footage, when it emerged, clearly showed Blackwood's aggressive approach, his invasive comments audible enough to be transcribed. Public opinion, fickle as always, swung in Ethan's favor. The hashtag defending Camille started trending, with people sharing stories of times they wished someone had stood up for them against workplace harassment. "You're a hero again," Lily informed Ethan, showing him her tablet where classmates were messaging about her famous dad. "I'm not a hero, baby girl. Just made a mistake that happened to work out." Miss Henderson says heroes are people who do the right thing even when it's the wrong thing. That sounds like you. Your teacher's too smart. She also says you and Ms. Camille should get married. Ethan choked on his coffee. She said what? Well, she said it to the other teachers, but I heard. I was getting water. She said you're perfect for each other and everyone can see it except you two. We can see it, Camille said from the doorway. She'd arrived early, looking ready for battle in a suit that meant business. We're just taking our time. Why? Lily asked with the directness only a 7-year-old could manage. If you love each other, why wait? Ethan and Camille exchanged glances. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. The board meeting was scheduled for noon. Ethan wasn't allowed to attend, conflict of interest, but Marcus provided updates via text. The old guard wanted both Camille and Ethan gone, arguing that the scandal was too much. The younger members argued that standing by their CEO would show strength, modern values, a company that protected its people. They're asking about your relationship, Marcus texted, whether it predated the plane incident, whether it constitutes an ethical violation. Camille had prepared for this. She presented a timeline showing that nothing inappropriate had happened while Ethan was just security. She talked about boundaries maintained, professionalism upheld, and then she did something unexpected. I'm in love with him, she told the board, according to Marcus's frantic texts. Not because he saved my life, not because he's convenient, but because he sees the work we do here as important. Because he reminds me why we do it. Because his daughter asks better questions about pharmaceutical ethics than half of you. If that's a scandal, then we're in the wrong business. The vote was close, 7-5, but Camille kept her position. The stipulation was that Ethan's role would be restructured. No longer personal security, he'd become director of corporate security, overseeing the entire department. A promotion that took him out of her direct chain of command, solving the ethical concerns while keeping them in the same orbit. So I'm your boss now? Ethan asked that evening, reviewing the new organizational chart. Technically, we're peers, both reporting to the board. The board you regularly ignore. Only when they're wrong, which is often. They were in his apartment again, Lily doing homework at the kitchen table while they cooked dinner together. It was becoming their routine, the CEO and the security director playing house in Queens while running a pharmaceutical empire during business hours. The Times wants to do a profile, Camille said, chopping vegetables with the focus she brought to everything. About us. The unconventional romance, the class differences, the whole fairy tale angle. Tell them no. I did. Then the Journal called. And the Post. And 60 Minutes. All no? All no. This is ours, not theirs. Lily looked up from her math homework. But everyone already knows. Bobby Henderson says his mom says you're like a Disney movie, but with more punching. Your friend Bobby's mom sounds interesting, Camille said. She's president of the PTA. She wants you to speak at Career Day. About pharmaceutical manufacturing? About being a boss lady who dates superheroes. I'm not a superhero, Ethan protested. You kind of are, Camille and Lily said in unison, then high-fived over his groan. The months that followed were a study in balance. Camille navigated the corporate world while Ethan built the security department into something more comprehensive than just executive protection. They kept separate apartments but lived in practice together, splitting time between Queens and Manhattan, between Lily's school events and board meetings, between normal and extraordinary. The Webb trial was a sensation. He was convicted of perjury and fraud, sentenced to 5 years that he'd probably served 2 of. Blackwood took a plea deal, losing his company and fortune, but avoiding significant jail time, because that's how justice works when you can afford good lawyers. Drake Industries, meanwhile, thrived. The controversy had actually helped in a perverse way, positioning Camille as a reformer, someone willing to fight for change. Stock prices recovered and surpassed previous highs. New partnerships formed with companies that appreciated her stance on accessibility and transparency. But the real change was personal. It happened on a Tuesday, unremarkable, except for being Lily's 8th birthday. They'd planned a small party, just family and close friends, nothing elaborate. But when Ethan arrived at the office to pick up Camille, he found her in tears. "What's wrong?" He was instantly in protection mode, scanning for threats. She held up a paper, test results from their latest trial. "It works," she whispered. "The childhood leukemia drug. It works. 93% remission rate. We're going to save so many lives." He held her while she cried. Tears of relief, of vindication, of all the pressure finally breaking. This was why she did it, why she fought through scandals and threats and impossible decisions. For moments like this, when science and determination combined to push back death a little farther. "We should celebrate," he said. "We have Lily's party." That's the perfect celebration. At the party, surrounded by second graders hyped up on cake and possibility, Camille pulled Ethan aside. "I've been thinking," she said. "Dangerous. I want to adopt Lily." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. "What?" She's your daughter, will always be your daughter, but I want to be her mother too, legally, if she'll have me. If you'll have me. "Camille, I know we haven't talked about marriage or formal anything, but she already calls me mom sometimes when she forgets to be careful, and I want it to be real. I want to be able to pick her up from school without questions, make medical decisions if needed, be more than just dad's girlfriend." "You want to be her mother?" "I want to be her mother. Your wife, a family. The whole complicated, messy, beautiful thing." Ethan looked across the room at Lily, who was explaining to her friends why butterflies were actually more complex than pharmaceutical companies. She was wearing the wings from her recital, repaired and reinforced, still believing she could fly. "You'd be taking on a lot," he said. "Single dad baggage, an 8-year-old who thinks she knows everything, a boyfriend who punches people at charity galas. You'd be taking on a workaholic CEO with more enemies than friends, a woman who forgot to eat unless reminded, and someone who never thought she'd have a family until she found one by accident." "Sounds perfect." "Really? Really? But we asked Lily first. This is her choice too." They asked her that night, after the party guests had gone home and the apartment was quiet except for the dishwasher running and the city noise filtering through windows. "You want to be my mom?" Lily asked Camille, eyes wide. "For real?" "For real, if that's okay with you." Lily considered this with the gravity of someone making a life-altering decision, which she was. "Would you live here all the time?" "We'd probably get a bigger place," Ethan said. "Somewhere with room for all of us." "Can I still keep my butterfly collection?" "We'll build you a butterfly room," Camille promised. "And you'll marry Dad, if he asks nicely." "Dad, ask nicely." Ethan laughed, then got down on one knee right there in his kitchen, among birthday wrapping paper and cake crumbs. "Camille Drake, will you marry me and officially join this chaos?" "Yes," she said simply. Then to Lily, "Is that okay with you?" Lily launched herself at both of them, a tangle of arms and tears and laughter. "Ms. Henderson is going to be so excited. She said you two were meant to be." "Your teacher's very wise," Camille said, holding her new family close. "She also said she wants an invitation to the wedding." "Done. And Bobby Henderson said his mom wants to plan it because she's good at parties." "We'll consider it. And the whole class wants to come because you're famous and Dad's a superhero." "Now you're pushing it," Ethan said, but he was smiling. They were married 6 months later, not in a grand ceremony befitting a CEO, but in the Butterfly Conservatory at the Natural History Museum, surrounded by actual butterflies and the people who mattered. Lily was the flower girl and maid of honor and ring bearer all rolled into one, taking her duties seriously in a dress that had wings attached, because of course it did. Helen Chen attended, her husband James now in treatment and showing improvement. She brought a gift, A butterfly pin that had belonged to her Lily, passed on to a new Lily who would carry the memory forward. Marcus gave a speech that made everyone cry, talking about his sister who'd devoted her life to saving others, finally saving herself by letting someone save her. Even Bobby Henderson's mom was there, having somehow actually helped plan parts of the reception, proving that PTA presidents were forces of nature that shouldn't be underestimated. But the moment that mattered most came during the vows. "You saved my life," Camille said to Ethan, "not just on that plane, but every day since. You reminded me that there's more to life than work, more to success than profit, more to love than safety. You and Lily gave me a family I didn't know I needed." "You saved mine too," Ethan replied. "You showed me that protecting someone isn't just about keeping them from harm, but helping them fly. You gave Lily a role model who proves that strength and kindness aren't opposites. You gave us both a future we couldn't have imagined." "And I got two parents out of it," Lily interjected, making everyone laugh. As they kissed to seal their union, butterflies released throughout the conservatory, a chaos of wings and color that seemed perfect for the moment. Camille Drake became Camille Ward Drake, hyphenated because she was still CEO and had a brand to maintain, and Ethan Ward became the unlikely prince in a very modern fairy tale. The media had a field day, of course. From bodyguard to husband, the Drake love story ran in every major publication. But they kept the details private, sharing only what they chose, protecting the life they'd built together. Drake Industries continued to thrive under Camille's leadership, with Ethan ensuring her security in every sense of the word. They developed new drugs, saved more lives, and fought the fights that needed fighting. But they also made it home for dinner most nights, helped with homework, attended school plays where Lily inevitably played some kind of winged creature. 2 years into their marriage, the Ward Drake household had settled into a rhythm that outsiders found bewildering but worked perfectly for them. Their brownstone in Brooklyn, a compromise between Manhattan's intensity and Queens' groundedness, was a controlled chaos of scientific journals, security reports, and Lily's ever-expanding butterfly collection that had indeed taken over an entire room. "Dad, Mom's not eating again," Lily announced one morning, now 10, and appointed herself as the family's health monitor. She stood in the doorway of Camille's home office, hands on her hips in a pose that was pure mimicry of her adoptive mother's boardroom stance. Ethan looked up from the threat assessment he was reviewing. A pharmaceutical conference in Geneva next month had attracted the usual collection of protesters, competitors, and potential problems. But his daughter was right. Camille had been in her office since 4 a.m., and the breakfast he'd brought her sat untouched. "Code Red?" he asked Lily. "Approaching Code Red. She's doing that thing where she reads the same page over and over." They'd developed this system, a color-coded assessment of Camille's workaholic tendencies. Green meant normal CEO behavior. Yellow meant intervention suggested. Red meant forced extraction from office. Ethan found his wife exactly as Lily described, staring at a clinical trial report, but not really seeing it. The past month had been brutal. A new Alzheimer's drug showing promise, but not enough. A hostile takeover attempt from a Chinese firm. And yesterday, the news that Senator Morrison was launching another investigation into pharmaceutical pricing. "Earth to Camille, Chia," he said, removing the report from her hands. She blinked, focusing on him slowly. "What time is it? Time for you to eat something and tell me what's really wrong. Because it's not the Morrison investigation. You eat those for breakfast, literally apparently, since you skipped actual breakfast." "We lost another one," she said quietly. "The trial in Mumbai. A 12-year-old girl. Unexpected interaction with a local medication we didn't know she was taking." Ethan sat on the edge of her desk, understanding now. Every death in their trials hit Camille hard, but children were the worst. They reminded her of the Xenopril disaster, of promises to do better that sometimes felt impossible to keep. "Tell me about her." "Priya Sharma. Loved to dance, apparently. Classical Indian dance. Her parents sent a video of her performing last year, before the disease progressed." Camille pulled up the video on her tablet, showing a girl in brilliant costume, moving with grace that belied her age. "We were supposed to save her." "You can't save everyone." "That's what everyone says. But what if everyone's wrong? What if we just haven't figured out how yet?" This was the weight she carried, not just running a company, but holding herself personally responsible for every life they touched. It was what made her brilliant and what threatened to break her. "Mom?" Lily appeared with a tray, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, and a note that said "Doctor's orders, Dr. Lily," with a butterfly drawn in the corner. Camille managed a smile. "Did you make this?" "Dad helped, but I cracked the eggs. Only got a little shell in them." "Extra calcium," Ethan said. "Good for bones." As Camille ate, mostly to appease Lily, her phone rang. Marcus from the office. "We have a situation," his voice tight through the speaker. "James Chen is here." Ethan was instantly alert. Chen had been released 6 months ago after intensive psychiatric treatment, supposedly stable, but his presence at Drake Industries couldn't be good. "Security knows?" Ethan asked. He walked in through the main entrance, asked to see Camille. He's not making threats, just sitting in the lobby. "But people are nervous." "We'll be right there," Camille said, already standing. "No," Ethan countered. "I'll go. You stay here with Lily." He asked for me specifically, and Helen called last week, said he was doing better, wanting to make amends. Maybe that's all this is. And maybe it's not. They looked at each other, the eternal dance of her optimism and his caution. Usually they found a middle ground, but this was different. This was the man who'd tried to kill her. "I'm coming with you," Lily announced. "It's Saturday, and you promised we'd go to the museum." "This is work stuff, baby girl," Ethan said. "Everything's work stuff lately. Besides, I want to see Mr. Chen." His daughter liked butterflies too. Sometimes Lily's emotional intelligence was startling. She understood connections that adults tried to complicate, saw humanity where others saw only threat. In the end, they all went. Though Lily waited in Camille's office with Marcus, while Ethan and Camille met James Chen in a conference room with security standing by. The man who rose when they entered looked nothing like the wild-eyed attacker from the plane. Medication and therapy had restored something human to his features, though grief still lived in the lines around his eyes. "Ms. Drake, Mr. Ward." He didn't extend his hand, understanding that bridge might be too far. "Thank you for seeing me." "James," Camille said carefully. "How are you?" "Better, clearer, ashamed." He sat back down heavily. "I came to apologize, not because my therapist said I should, though he did, but because I need you to know that I know what I did was wrong, monstrous." "You were grieving," Camille offered. "Grief isn't an excuse for attempted murder. You didn't kill Lily, my Lily. A drug interaction did, one that nobody could have predicted. I know that now. I knew it then, too, somewhere under the rage, but rage was easier than acceptance." Ethan watched him carefully, looking for signs of deception or instability. But all he saw was a broken man trying to piece himself back together. "Why now?" Ethan asked. "Why come here?" "Because I'm starting a foundation, in Lily's memory, to fund research into drug interactions, to create better databases so what happened to her doesn't happen to other children. We thought, maybe Drake Industries might want to be involved." Camille leaned forward, interest replacing caution. "Tell me more." For the next hour, James Chen outlined his vision, a comprehensive system for tracking and predicting drug interactions, especially in pediatric cases. It was ambitious, probably impossible, but the kind of impossible that Camille specialized in. "We'll fund it," she said when he finished. "Full backing. Our research team will collaborate." "Just like that?" James seemed stunned. "Your daughter died because of our drug. You tried to kill me because of your grief. Somewhere in between those tragedies is a chance to prevent others. So yes, just like that." After Chen left, Ethan found Camille standing at her office window looking out at the city. "That was risky," he said. "Everything's risky. But imagine if it works. If we can prevent even one child from dying from interaction complications. And if he relapses, if this is all manipulation, then you'll protect me, like you always do. But I don't think it is. I think he's just a father trying to make meaning from loss." "Like we all are," Ethan said, thinking of his own fears for Lily, the constant worry that came with loving someone in a dangerous world. Marcus knocked, entering with Lily, who was carrying her butterfly encyclopedia. "Did you know," she announced, "that some butterflies are poisonous? They eat toxic plants as caterpillars and keep the poison when they transform. It protects them. Fascinating, Camille said, though she was clearly still thinking about Chen. It's like you, Mom. You took something toxic, what happened with the drug trial, and transformed it into something that protects people. New safety protocols and stuff. The adults exchanged glances. Sometimes Lily's observations were accidentally profound. Speaking of transformations, Marcus said, the Geneva conference. The security situation has gotten more complex. There's been a specific threat against Camille. Ethan immediately shifted into professional mode. How specific? Very. They have her schedule, hotel information, even the room number, which shouldn't be possible. Inside information? Has to be. Someone in our organization or the conference planning committee. Camille sighed. Cancel it? We'll do it virtually? No, Ethan said, surprising everyone. That's what they want. Force you to hide, make you look weak. We go, but we go prepared. It's too dangerous, Marcus protested. Everything's dangerous. But backing down from a threat means they win. We just need to be smarter. They spent the next week planning, Ethan coordinating with Swiss security, creating false schedules, booking multiple hotels. It was elaborate, perhaps excessive, but these were the lengths required to keep Camille safe while refusing to let fear dictate their lives. The night before departure, Lily crawled into their bed, something she rarely did anymore. I don't want you to go, she said quietly. It's just a few days, sweetheart, Camille assured her. But what if something happens? What if someone tries to hurt you again? Ethan pulled her close. That's why I'm going. To make sure nothing happens. But what if they hurt you too? Then I'd be an orphan again. The word again hung heavy. Lily rarely mentioned her birth mother, the woman who'd abandoned them when she was a baby, but the fear of loss never fully went away. Look at me, Camille said, sitting up. We are always careful. We have good people protecting us. And we have something more important. We have reasons to come home. You're our reason, Lily. You're why we're careful, why we fight, why we always come back. Promise? Promise, they said together. Geneva was cold and gray when they arrived, the conference center a modern fortress of glass and steel. Ethan had his team in place, some visible, others blending with the attendees. Camille moved through her presentations and meetings with her usual confidence, but he could see the strain. Being a target was exhausting, even when you pretended it wasn't. The threat materialized on the second day, but not how they'd expected. Ethan was checking the afternoon venue when his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a photo attached. His blood went cold. It was Lily, at school, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. We know you're in Geneva. We know she's in New York. Make your choice. He called the school immediately, barely breathing until they confirmed Lily was safe in class. Then he called his backup team in New York, setting protection in motion. Only then did he find Camille, pulling her from a panel discussion without explanation. What's wrong? She knew his faces, recognized this one as serious. He showed her the photo. Her composure cracked for just a moment before reforming harder than before. We're leaving, she said. No, that's what they want, to prove they can control us through fear. They're threatening our daughter. And if we run now, they'll do it again and again. We end this here. Marcus had traced the phone number to a hotel 3 blocks away. Swiss police were already moving, but Ethan wanted to be there, needed to be there. Go, Camille said. I'll stay here with security. Go get whoever's threatening our family. The hotel room was registered to Dr. Martin Webb. Ethan felt rage build, cold and focused. Webb was supposed to be in federal prison, but when they breached the room, they found him alone, pathetic, clearly high on something that had destroyed whatever remained of his brilliant mind. Ethan Ward, Webb slurred. The guard dog. How's it feel knowing you can't protect everyone? How did you get out? Good behavior. Overcrowding. The system's beautiful if you know how to work it. He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Blackwood paid me to scare you. From his cell, can you believe it? Still pulling strings even from federal prison. The photo of Lily. Who took it? No one. It's from her school's website. Last year's science fair. Photoshop did the rest. But you didn't know that, did you? For a moment, you thought your precious daughter was in danger. Ethan's fist clenched, but he held back. Webb wasn't worth it. Here's what's going to happen, Ethan said calmly. You're going to be arrested for violation of parole, making terroristic threats, and conspiracy. You'll go back to prison, and this time you won't get out. And if you ever come near my family again, prison will be the least of your concerns. Webb tried to laugh again, but it died as Swiss police filed in, efficient and unsympathetic. As they cuffed him, he looked at Ethan with eyes that had lost everything. She destroyed my life. Your wife. Took everything. No, Ethan corrected. You destroyed your life when you chose to falsify data, when you chose money over truth. Camille just held you accountable. Back at the conference, Camille was finishing her keynote, speaking about the future of pharmaceutical ethics to a room of people who'd prefer profit over principles. But she was changing minds, one speech at a time, one drug at a time, one saved life at a time. How was it? She asked when he slipped back into the room. Handled. Webb's in custody. It was all smoke, no fire. Lily was never in danger. She exhaled slowly, tension leaving her shoulders. Thank you. For what? For being you. For keeping us safe. For not letting fear win. That night, they video called Lily, who showed them her science project about metamorphosis. She'd won second place, beaten by Bobby Henderson's volcano, but she wasn't upset. Butterflies are better than volcanoes anyway, she declared. They transform without destroying everything. Wise words, Camille said. Ms. Henderson says I get my wisdom from my parents, both of them. When they returned to New York, life resumed its complicated rhythm. But something had shifted in Camille. The combination of Chen's visit, Webb's threat, and Lily's constant reminders about transformation had sparked something. I want to restructure the company, she announced at dinner one evening. Create a pediatric division focused solely on children's medications and drug interactions. James Chen would run it. The man who tried to kill you? Ethan was skeptical. The man who lost his daughter to our failure. Who better to ensure it doesn't happen again? The board will never approve it. Then I'll fight the board. Again. It's becoming a hobby. Lily looked up from her homework. I think it's a good idea. Mr. Chen knows what it's like to lose someone. He'll work harder to save others. When did you become a corporate strategist? Ethan asked. Since I started listening at Mom's boring phone calls. They're not boring, Camille protested. They're complex. Boring, Lily and Ethan said in unison. The fight with the board was indeed brutal. Hiring someone who'd attempted murder, even with extenuating circumstances, seemed like corporate suicide. But Camille presented data, testimonials from Chen's doctors, support from patient advocacy groups. She reminded them that redemption was possible, that sometimes the greatest advocates came from the greatest losses. This is insane, Richard Blackwood's replacement on the board argued. We'd be liable if he relapses. We're liable every day, Camille countered. Every drug we produce, every trial we run, every decision we make carries risk. But the potential benefit, a division dedicated to preventing pediatric drug interactions, outweighs that risk. And if he tries to kill you again, then my husband will stop him. Again. He's very good at it. There were chuckles at that, the story of the plane having become corporate legend. In the end, they voted to approve a trial period. 6 months for Chen to prove himself, under constant supervision, with Ethan personally overseeing security protocols. The announcement made headlines. Pharma CEO hires would-be assassin competed with revolutionary redemption in corporate America for the most sensational take. But Camille weathered it all with the grace of someone who'd faced worse. Chen threw himself into the work with the fervor of a man seeking absolution. Within 3 months, his team had identified 17 potentially dangerous drug interactions that current systems missed. They saved their first life, a 6-year-old in Boston, by flagging a combination that would have been fatal. He called me crying, Helen Chen told them, visiting the office with cookies she'd baked as a thank you. First time he's cried happy tears since our Lily died. You gave him purpose again. He earned it, Camille replied. The work speaks for itself. Meanwhile, Lily was growing up too fast, as children do. Now 11, she'd started asking harder questions about the world, about fairness, about why some people had medicine and others didn't. We could give it away free, she suggested one evening, reviewing Camille's presentation for shareholders. All of it. Then we couldn't make more, Camille explained. Research costs money, development costs money, even manufacturing costs money. But people are dying because they're poor. That's not fair. No, Ethan agreed. It's not. So fix it, Lily said simply, as if systemic healthcare inequality was just another problem to solve. That night, after Lily was asleep, Camille turned to Ethan. She's right, you know. We could do more. You already do more than most. But not enough. Never enough. What if we created a subsidiary, nonprofit, funded by the main company, producing generic versions of our drugs for developing nations at cost? The board would revolt. Let them. I own controlling interest. Well, we do. Community property and all that. Ethan smiled at the we. 2 years of marriage, and she still included him in everything, even though he'd contributed nothing to her empire except protection and forced lunch breaks. Then do it, he said. Save the world. I'll keep you safe while you do. And Lily? Lily will probably run the whole thing by the time she's 18. The subsidiary, named Butterfly Pharmaceuticals in honor of Lily's obsession, launched 6 months later. The board did revolt. Shareholders complained about reduced profits. But Camille held firm. Within a year, they were providing life-saving medications to 12 countries that couldn't afford market prices. You're destroying shareholder value, a particularly aggressive board member accused during a heated meeting. I'm creating human value, Camille replied. If shareholders don't see the worth in that, they're welcome to sell. Some did, but others bought in. Believers in the radical idea that pharmaceutical companies could prioritize lives over profits and still succeed. Through it all, Ethan maintained security, both corporate and personal. There were still threats. There always would be when you challenge systems designed to exclude and exploit. But they'd learned to live with danger, to not let it define or confine them. One evening, as they watched Lily perform in her school's production of Shakespeare, she was Puck, naturally, having lobbied for the role with PowerPoint presentations about the character's importance. Ethan reflected on their unlikely journey. From a desperate tackle on a plane to this, a family forged in crisis, strengthened by challenge, united in purpose. What are you thinking? Camille whispered, catching his distant expression. That none of this should have worked. Ex-Marine single dad, pharmaceutical CEO, a kid obsessed with butterflies. We're statistically impossible. The best things usually are, she replied, taking his hand. On stage, Lily delivered her lines with the confidence of someone who'd grown up in boardrooms in Brooklyn, equally comfortable in both worlds. She caught their eyes in the audience and winked, breaking character for just a moment to be their daughter, their miracle, their reminder that transformation was always possible. After the play, at the reception in the school cafeteria with its fluorescent lights and punch that tasted like childhood, Bobby Henderson's mom approached them. I wanted to thank you, she said to Camille. My nephew, he's in Nigeria. He received medication from Butterfly Pharmaceuticals, liver condition that would have killed him. You saved his life. The medicine saved his life, Camille corrected. No, Mrs. Henderson insisted. You did, by choosing to make it available, by fighting for people like him. As she walked away, Ethan saw Camille's eyes glisten. For all her corporate armor, these moments still reached her. The individual lives behind the statistics, the faces behind the numbers. Mom, are you crying? Lily appeared, still in her Puck costume, but having added butterfly wings for reasons known only to her. Happy tears, Camille admitted. Good. Sad tears are only for really important things, like when butterflies die or when Dad makes his experimental casserole. Hey, Ethan protested. My casserole is improving. It's really not, Camille and Lily said together, then dissolved into laughter that drew looks from other parents, the pharmaceutical CEO and her bodyguard husband and their butterfly-obsessed daughter, an impossible family that somehow worked. That night, as they tucked Lily into bed surrounded by her butterfly posters and books about metamorphosis, she asked, Do you think I'll change the world someday? Like you do? You already are, Camille told her. Every day, just by being you. That's what parents have to say. No, Ethan said. That's what's true. You changed our world, made it bigger, brighter, more possible. That's the best kind of change. Lily considered this, then nodded. Okay, but I still want to discover a new butterfly species and maybe cure something and possibly learn to actually fly. Ambitious, Camille noted. I learned from the best, Lily replied, then closed her eyes, asleep within moments with the easy exhaustion of childhood. In the hallway outside her room, Ethan pulled Camille close. She's going to be extraordinary. She already is, like her father. You mean the one who went from fixing cars to running corporate security? I mean the one who saw a threat and acted without hesitation. Who sees a problem and solves it. Who makes sure everyone eats lunch. That last one's my greatest achievement. She kissed him, soft and familiar, and still somehow electric after all this time. I love you, even though you punch people at galas. I love you too, even though you try to save the entire world before breakfast. Someone has to, and someone has to make sure you survive long enough to do it. They stood there in the hallway of their Brooklyn brownstone, holding each other in the small pocket of peace they'd carved from a chaotic world. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, board battles, security threats, the endless complexity of trying to do good in an industry designed for profit. But tonight, they were just a family. Impossible, improbable, and absolutely perfect in their imperfection. A text buzzed on both their phones simultaneously. Marcus. Early morning board meeting called. Morrison's introducing legislation targeting pharmaceutical pricing. They want strategy by 7 a.m. So much for sleeping in, Camille sighed. I'll make coffee, Ethan offered. You start strategizing. We'll face it together. Like always? Like always. They went to their home office, settling into the routine of crisis management that had become oddly comfortable. Camille pulling up data, Ethan assessing security implications, both of them building plans to face whatever came next. The morning board meeting was more hostile than usual. Senator Morrison's proposed legislation would cap pharmaceutical prices at levels that several board members insisted would destroy innovation and bankrupt research divisions. Camille sat at the head of the conference table, absorbing their panic with the calm of someone who'd weathered worse storms. This is your fault, Harrison Blake, the newest board member, accused. Your grandstanding about accessible medicine gave Morrison ammunition. Now he's using Drake Industries as his poster child for pharmaceutical greed despite everything we've done. Because of everything we've done, Camille corrected. We've proven that pharmaceutical companies can operate ethically and still profit. Morrison's using us because we're the example that invalidates everyone else's excuses. That's not helpful when the legislation names us specifically, another member argued. Ethan stood by the door, his usual position during board meetings, watching for threats both physical and corporate. He'd learned to read these rooms, who might leak to the press, who might attempt a hostile takeover, who was genuinely interested in the mission versus the money. What if we support it? Camille said suddenly. The room went silent. Have you lost your mind? Blake sputtered. Think about it. We support the legislation publicly, help shape it privately. We're already operating within most of Morrison's proposed caps through Butterfly Pharmaceuticals. We'd be fine. Our competitors, however, would struggle. You want to use federal legislation to damage our competition? Marcus asked, a smile playing at his lips. I want to use federal legislation to force the entire industry to operate ethically. If that damages companies that prioritize profit over patients, I can live with that. The argument continued for 3 hours. By the time Lily's school called about early dismissal due to a water main break, they'd reached a tentative agreement. Drake Industries would publicly support Morrison's legislation while privately negotiating modifications that would protect legitimate research costs. Your daughter's here, Ethan's assistant informed him as Lily arrived at the office, still in her school uniform but having somehow acquired butterfly face paint between school and the building. Art class, she explained when he raised an eyebrow. Ms. Rodriguez let us paint each other. She settled in Camille's office with her homework while the adults continued strategizing. But after an hour, she looked up from her history textbook. Why do people think making money is more important than saving lives? She asked. The adults exchanged glances. It was the kind of question that had no good answer, only complicated ones. Because, Camille said carefully, some people believe that making money is how you save lives. That profit, drives innovation. But you make money and save lives. So do other companies, so that's not true. It's more complex than that, sweetheart. Adults always say that when they don't want to admit something's wrong. Ethan laughed despite himself. She's got you there. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of testimony preparation, media appearances, and security concerns. Morrison had agreed to meet with Camille privately, but Ethan insisted on extensive precautions. The senator had been receiving death threats from pharmaceutical lobbyists who saw his legislation as an existential threat. The meeting took place in a neutral location, a conference room at a DC hotel that Ethan's team had swept twice. Morrison arrived alone, which surprised them. "No staff?" Camille asked. "This conversation doesn't need witnesses," Morrison replied. He looked older than his photos, worn down by years of fighting systems designed to resist change. "You're supporting my bill," he said without preamble. "Why?" "Because it's the right thing to do." "Bullshit! CEOs don't support legislation that hurts their bottom line out of altruism." Camille leaned back, studying him. "You really think I'm that calculating?" "I think you're exactly that calculating. The question is what you're calculating." "Fine. You want the truth? I support it because Drake Industries is already compliant with most of your proposals. We'll take a hit, but we'll survive. Our competitors won't. In 5 years, we'll have larger market share because we chose ethics over exploitation early." Morrison laughed, harsh and surprised. "So you're using my legislation to eliminate competition?" "I'm using your legislation to force everyone to operate the way we already do. If that eliminates companies that can't function ethically, yes, I'm fine with that." "You're more ruthless than I expected." "I learned from the best. The pharmaceutical industry taught me that ruthlessness and righteousness aren't mutually exclusive." They negotiated for 2 hours, finding middle ground on research exemptions and pediatric medication provisions. By the end, they had an agreement neither loved but both could live with. "You know they'll come after you," Morrison warned as they prepared to leave. "The industry. They'll try to destroy you for this." "They've been trying for years," Ethan interjected. "We're still here." Morrison looked at him with interest. "The bodyguard from the plane. You married up." "He saved my life," Camille said simply. "Turns out that's a good foundation for a marriage." "Better than most," Morrison agreed. "Keep her safe, Mr. Ward. She might be the only ethical CEO in pharmaceuticals." "There are others," Camille protested. "Maybe, but none with your influence or your courage." As they left, Ethan noticed Morrison's security detail. Discreet, but present. The senator was taking threats seriously. Good. Too many reformers got careless when they started feeling invincible. Back in New York, James Chen was waiting in Camille's office with what he called concerning data. "We've identified a pattern," he said, spreading charts across her desk. 17 children, all in different trials for different drugs, all experiencing similar unexpected reactions. They're not connected by medication, condition, or location, but something's linking them. Camille studied the data, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "These reactions, they're similar to the Xenopryl failures." "Exactly. But none of these drugs have the same mechanism as Xenopryl. It doesn't make sense unless there's something else. Something we're missing." They worked through the night, Lily eventually falling asleep on the office couch, while the adults chased patterns in data. It was Ethan, surprisingly, who spotted it. "They're all from the same regions," he said, pointing at a map Chen had created. "Different cities, but look, all near major industrial centers that had chemical spills in the last decade." Chen's eyes widened. Environmental contamination, something in their systems from exposure that's interacting with the medications. "We need to test this," Camille said, already reaching for her phone. "If we're right, it's not just our drugs. Every pharmaceutical company could be seeing these reactions without understanding why." The discovery launched an investigation that would take months to complete, but the initial findings were disturbing. Chemical contamination from industrial accidents had left traces in local populations that no one was testing for, creating dangerous interactions with medications that appeared safe in controlled trials. "This is bigger than us," Chen said during a team meeting. We need to share this with everyone. Competitors, regulators, everyone. That's billions in potential liability, Blake warned from his position on the board. If we reveal this, every pharmaceutical company could face lawsuits. And if we don't, children keep dying, Camille countered. It's not our responsibility to police the entire industry. It is when we have information that could save lives. The board fought her, as they always did when ethics met economics. But Camille held firm, and eventually, grudgingly, they agreed to release the findings. The announcement sent shockwaves through both the pharmaceutical and chemical industries. Lawsuits flew, stock prices plummeted, and regulators scrambled to implement new testing requirements. Drake Industries' stock dropped 20% in a day. "You're destroying shareholder value again," Blake accused during an emergency board meeting. "I'm saving lives again," Camille corrected. "If shareholders can't see the value in that, they're investing in the wrong company." That night, as they dealt with the fallout, Lily brought them both tea, a reversal of roles that made them smile despite everything. "I heard what you did," she said, "about telling everyone about the chemical thing." "It was the right thing to do," Camille said, "even though it cost money." "Especially because it cost money. The right thing usually does." Lily nodded solemnly. "When I grow up, I want to be like you, both of you. Mom saves people with science, Dad saves people with protection, and maybe I can do both." "You can do anything," Ethan told her. "Even fly?" "Metaphorically? Absolutely." "I was hoping for literally, but I'll take metaphorically for now." The next crisis came faster than expected. A whistleblower inside Drake Industries leaked documents suggesting that Camille had known about the environmental contamination issue months before announcing it. The documents were taken out of context, preliminary research notes that showed suspicion but not confirmation. But the media didn't care about nuance. "Drake's CEO hid life-threatening information," screamed the headlines. "This is ridiculous," Marcus fumed, pacing Camille's office. "Anyone who actually reads the documents can see you are investigating, not hiding." "Since when has anyone actually read the documents?" Camille replied wearily. The board called another emergency meeting. This time, their patience had run out. "You need to step down," Blake said bluntly. "Temporarily, let this blow over. If I step down now, it looks like admission of guilt. If you don't, the company suffers. Stock is down 30%. Partners are pulling out. We're hemorrhaging value." "Value," Camille repeated. "Is that all that matters?" "It is to shareholders." "Then maybe we need different shareholders." "That's not your decision to make." Actually," Ethan interrupted from his position by the door, "it is." Everyone turned to look at him. "Camille owns 42%. I own 5%, transferred as part of our marriage assets. Marcus owns 8%. That's 55%. Controlling interest. So yes, it is her decision." Blake's face flushed. "You can't be serious." "Dead serious," Marcus confirmed. "Family controls this company, has since our father founded it, and family says Camille stays. The attempted coup failed, but the damage was done. 3 board members resigned, several major investors pulled out, and the media continued its feeding frenzy. Through it all, Camille worked, 18-hour days trying to hold everything together while still pushing forward with research, with Butterfly Pharmaceuticals, with the environmental contamination investigation. "You're killing yourself," Ethan told her one night, finding her asleep at her desk again. "I'm fine." "No, you're not. And neither is Lily. She asked me yesterday if you still lived with us." That hit home. Camille's face crumbled. "I'm failing at everything." "You're trying to do everything. There's a difference. If I don't fight, they win. Everyone who says profit matters more than people. If you burn out, they win anyway." She looked at him, exhaustion making her look older than her years. "What do I do?" "You delegate. You trust. You remember that saving the world is a team sport." The next day, Camille did something unprecedented. She took a vacation. Just 3 days, but she handed operations to Marcus, research to Chen, and let Ethan handle all security concerns without her input. They went to the Hamptons, to a small house that belonged to a friend who owed Camille favors. No servants, no meetings, no crisis management. Just the 3 of them, walking on the beach, building sandcastles, watching Lily chase seagulls while explaining to them that they were technically not flying efficiently. "This is nice," Camille said on their second day, watching the sunset while Lily drew butterflies in the sand. "This is normal," Ethan corrected. "People do this all the time." "Not people like me." "Maybe that needs to change." "Maybe," she agreed, leaning into him. "The company won't collapse if I'm gone for 3 days. The company won't collapse if you're gone for 3 weeks. You've built something that can survive without you." "That's either comforting or terrifying." "Both," Lily called out, having apparently been listening. "Most important things are both." When they returned to New York, the crisis had actually improved. Marcus had handled the media brilliantly, Chen had made breakthrough discoveries about preventing contamination interactions, and the stock had stabilized. "See," Ethan said, "the world doesn't end when you take a break." Point taken. But the respite was short-lived. Morrison's legislation passed, sending the pharmaceutical industry into chaos. As Camille had predicted, Drake Industries weathered it better than most, but the transition was brutal. Competitors merged or folded, regulations tightened, and suddenly, Drake Industries was one of the last major players standing. "We won," Blake said during a board meeting, having somehow retained his position despite the coup attempt. "We're positioned to dominate the market." "We survived," Camille corrected. "Winning would be if everyone had adapted instead of collapsed." "Their failure is our opportunity." "Their failure is a tragedy. Those were good companies, employing thousands of people, developing important drugs. We didn't want to destroy them, just force them to be better." "The market doesn't care about intentions." "No," Camille agreed, "but I do." She launched an unprecedented initiative, hiring researchers from failed companies, acquiring promising drugs that would otherwise disappear, essentially rebuilding the industry she'd helped reshape. It was expensive, possibly foolish, definitely not what shareholders wanted. "You're trying to save everyone," Ethan observed one evening. "Someone has to." "You can't save everyone. We've been through this." "I can try. And I'll keep you alive while you do. But Camille, you need to accept that some things are beyond your control." She was about to respond when her phone rang. It was Chen, and his voice was panicked. "There's been an accident, the lab, explosion. We have casualties." They rushed to the scene, finding chaos. Fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, all surrounding the research facility where Chen's team worked on pediatric formulations. The explosion had destroyed half the building. "How many?" Camille asked the fire chief. 7 injured, 2 critical. Could have been worse. Most of the staff was at lunch. Cause? Too early to tell. Could be accident, could be... He didn't need to finish. Industrial sabotage was always a possibility in pharmaceutical research, especially when you were developing drugs that threatened entire profit models. Chen was one of the injured, burns on his arms from trying to rescue research data. As they waited in the hospital, Lily arrived with Marcus, having been picked up from school. "Is everyone okay?" she asked, mature beyond her years. "They will be," Camille said, though she wasn't sure. "Was it on purpose? Did someone do this?" "We don't know yet." Lily was quiet for a moment, then said, "If someone did this to stop the research, we have to continue it. Otherwise, they win." "It's not that simple," Ethan started. "Yes, it is," Lily interrupted. "Bad people want to stop good things. We don't let them. That's what you taught me." The investigation took weeks, but eventually confirmed what they'd suspected: sabotage. A competitor, facing bankruptcy from Morrison's legislation, had hired someone to destroy Drake's research, hoping to eliminate competition for a lucrative government contract. "We should prosecute," the lawyers advised. "We should rebuild," Camille countered. "Prosecution takes years. Rebuilding takes months. I know which matters more." They rebuilt, stronger and more secure. Chen recovered, scarred but determined. The research continued, lives were saved, and gradually the industry stabilized around a new normal, one where ethics and economics coexisted uneasily but necessarily. 1 year after the explosion, they held a memorial for those affected. It was supposed to be a small, private event, but hundreds showed up: researchers, patients, families whose lives had been touched by Drake Industries' work. "You did this," Ethan told Camille as they looked out at the crowd. "You changed an entire industry." "We did this," she corrected. "All of us." Helen Chen spoke at the memorial, talking about transformation through tragedy, about her husband's journey from would-be killer to life-saving researcher. Morrison attended, publicly thanking Camille for her support of his legislation despite the cost. Even some former competitors were there, now working within the new framework, grudgingly grateful for the forced evolution. "Mom," Lily said, tugging on Camille's sleeve, "someone wants to meet you." It was a young girl, maybe 8, with her parents. She was holding a butterfly drawing. "You saved my life," the girl said simply. "Your medicine. I wanted to say thank you." Camille knelt down, accepting the drawing with tears in her eyes. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Martinez." Camille's breath caught. It was one of the names from the Xenopril trial, one of the 37 who died. A different Sarah Martinez, but the name still carried weight. "Thank you, Sarah. This is beautiful." As the girl walked away with her parents, Ethan put his hand on Camille's shoulder. "You okay?" "Yeah, it's just, sometimes the universe sends messages." "What's this message?" "That we're doing the right thing. Despite everything, we're doing the right thing." The years that followed weren't easier, but they were steadier. Drake Industries became the model for ethical pharmaceutical development, studied in business schools as either an inspiration or a cautionary tale, depending on perspective. Butterfly Pharmaceuticals expanded to 30 countries, providing affordable medicine to millions who would otherwise have nothing. Lily grew into her teenage years with the confidence of someone raised by warriors, understanding that fighting for what's right was hereditary. She started an organization at school for young scientists interested in ethical research, wrote papers about corporate responsibility that made her teachers uncomfortable, and never stopped believing that butterflies were the perfect metaphor for transformation. "You've created a revolutionary," Ethan told Camille one evening, watching Lily organize a protest against her school's corporate sponsorship deal. "We've created someone who won't accept the unacceptable," Camille corrected. "That's different." "Is it, though?" They watched their daughter rally her classmates, passionate and articulate and absolutely unwilling to compromise on principles. "She's going to change the world," Camille said. "She already is, just like her mother. And her father. Don't forget who taught her to fight." "You taught her when to fight. I just taught her how." "Perfect combination, then." Blake had long since resigned from the board, replaced by people who understood that profit without purpose was hollow. The company thrived, proving that ethics and economics weren't mutually exclusive but mutually reinforcing when done right. "We have a problem," Marcus announced one day, entering Camille's office where she and Ethan were reviewing security for an upcoming conference. "What now?" "Someone's buying up our stock, quietly, through shell companies, but it's coordinated. Hostile takeover attempt." "Who?" "Best guess, Titan Pharmaceuticals' successor company. They've recovered from Blackwood's imprisonment and want revenge." "How much have they acquired?" 38%. "If they get to 51, they control the company," Camille finished. "We need to act fast," Ethan said. "Shore up support, buy back shares if necessary." "Or," Camille said slowly, "we let them." Both men stared at her. "Hear me out. They take control, thinking they'll gut our ethical programs and return to pure profit. But our structure makes that impossible. Butterfly Pharmaceuticals is independently chartered. The research divisions have contractual autonomy. The pediatric safety protocols are legally binding. They'd own a company they can't change." "That's insane," Marcus said. "That's brilliant," Ethan countered, seeing the strategy. "They'd bankrupt themselves trying to undo what we've built." "Exactly. Sometimes the best defense is letting your enemy punch themselves out." It took 6 months for the takeover to complete. The new board arrived triumphant, ready to dismantle Camille's legacy. They lasted exactly 3 months before realizing they'd bought a company so structurally committed to ethical operation that changing it would destroy it. "You did this on purpose," the new board chair accused during his resignation.